Gigi here for another live edition of B-Sides and Rarities. First shift happens. Kitty, we have got to get... Sorry for that, folks. Our feline producer is getting feisty. Let go. Jesus Christ. Alright, anyway. Yeah, so... Decided to do... So we did a show the other night. Well, it was actually two shows, and then on the part two, somehow we ended up simulcasting with Tessa TNT here, which, by the way, she's one of the hosts on the weekends over at Spaced Out Radio. And it was a cool show, but we had to take it down for a couple of understandable reasons. So we decided to, she seemed pretty cool. I've never really met her before, and we had a good time, so I figured I'd have her, figure we'd do it again, and do it on a proper B-side episode. And now we'll go ahead. Hey, what's up, Dennis?
Hey, Gigi.
So, hey, by the way, tell Tessa, welcome to the show. Now, I think, I didn't realize, a lot of times these B-side episodes end up being more fun than our main show because, for one, we can kind of say whatever we want on here. Well, we definitely can. And then for two, a lot of people end up calling in, especially if, from that Discord group I was telling you about. But there's a lot of shows going on right now that I know our audience listens to. Like, it looks like Wolfman's doing a show. Whose show is that, Dennis? Do you know who's doing a show over there? Anyway, they've got that's a solid, if you look at the lineup in the live chat on Internet Somalia, you can only imagine what kind of crazy bullshit is going on over there. So that's where a lot of people are. And then, of course, Jimmy and Clyde are both doing their shows. So, so we might not have a whole lot of folks participating tonight, but we'll open up the phone lines later anyway. I can imagine Dennis will want to come in and yell about something at some point. Hey, what's up, Queen? And so Tessa, how long have you been doing Spaced Out Radio? Is it just Saturdays, or do you do Sundays as well?
I do the full weekend, and I started off with just Sundays back in May. Then picked up Saturdays too. Before that, I was just transferring YouTube and then booking for Joe and doing different stuff like that. But yeah, it was a total surprise when Dave asked me to do it, and I really love it. You meet some really amazing people on there.
Yeah, and that's why I like to do these. I like to every once in a while have the guest of the show be another radio host because, I do at least 2 or 3 shows a week, and so do you. And so that's at least 3 nights a week where we're getting our minds blown in one way or another. We're always learning new information. We're all talking to all these different guests, and it's really cool to kind of, compare notes and see what you've heard and see what I've heard, see what you think, see what I think. I think it's a good, we both have a good perspective to talk about all kinds of shift. I can say shit, I forgot. So yeah, so
right on.
Yeah, so I like doing these interviews from time to time. And so when did you first get the Sunday gig, and then when was it where you got the whole weekend? Like, how long ago was that?
Well, it was in May when I got the Sunday gig, when I started doing that, and I believe it was a couple months later when I started Saturdays as well. So yeah, big surprise on both parts. I was totally blown away and had to think about it for a little bit. And I totally accepted it. And I'm so glad I did, because it's just, like I said, been a really amazing experience. And you meet so many like-minded, diverse people in there. So it's a pretty comfortable place to be.
Yeah, that's, and congratulations on that, because that's a pretty prestigious that's a pretty prestigious organization there. That's a serious, when it comes to the amount of production that goes on over there at Space Out Radio, they probably got everything scheduled like 3 months in advance, like everything's fine-tuned. It's 7 nights a week. That's a serious operation over there, and to be a part of that, much less on the weekends, is a pretty big, it's a pretty big deal. Because, they we used to be on the. Actually, I used to open up for him for about the better part of a year and a half on the Fringe FM, and yeah, he was a pretty he was a pretty big part of what the Fringe FM was, and he very kindly went on his own way, and totally understandable. But yeah, great show, and yeah, so congratulations on that. Now, before you were doing Spaced Out Radio, is this did you have any other experience prior to this, or how did you get involved in this industry in the first place?
I've co-hosted with a friend of mine. We used to do a show at a college radio station, and that was fun and interesting, playing different music that we really loved. Other than that, no, I haven't really had a lot of experience with radio. And so, yeah, it was a really big surprise that I was asked to do it. But, you do it in like high school or junior high school when you have, the radio thing going on and you can broadcast to your friends in the classroom, little stuff like that. But otherwise, no, I really didn't have a lot of experience with it. And I happened upon Spaced Out Radio quite by accident. I was on Page Share Monday, and I was sharing my page, Four Corners Paranormal Investigations, and I see Spaced Out Radio, and I was like, wow, I can relate. I got to check it out. And so went in there, and Trip and Kat were both like, hey, you're going to be hooked. And I was like, no, I don't really listen to podcasts or, live internet radio or anything. But they were right. I was hooked from day one. And it's just all the amazing topics that they hit on, and that you don't really hear a lot about in general radio. So it was pretty cool. I really dig it, and I'm so glad I did accidentally fall upon it. And it's just really been epic, like how quick things have moved and how many friends I've made. And I don't know what I'd be doing today besides just, investigating and working overnight security if I weren't doing this. Yeah,
because it's one thing, before it's funny, my origin story is kind of similar in the fact that it was totally accidental, fell in my lap. I was a guest on another show called Beyond the Strange about 4 years ago, about 3.5 years ago, and because I used to own an e-juice company, and at the time there was a lot of controversy, right, about the vape pens and the popcorn lung thing. So they wanted us to come on, and because my business partner, he's a hardcore chemist, and so we went on there just to explain that stuff. But they also had us on for this segment talking about UFOs. And I just so have happened, I've been listening to all kinds of shows for years, even before that. And it turns out I was very well versed in what they were talking about. And so then, I'll give out the call-in number in a little bit, Dennis. So then after that show, they're like, hey, do you want to come in next week? I was like, all right, sure. And then that happened a few weeks in a row. Then eventually they're just like, hey, do you just want to be a co-host? I'm like, fuck yeah, okay. And so I did that show for about a year, and then me and Cortana broke off and started our own thing here. But yeah, and that's the thing, is because before I started being a host, all of the research and all the stuff I was looking into was taking time away from what I should be doing on a day-to-day basis. But now it is what I'm supposed to do on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of the beauty of it for me when it comes to hosting these shows, and I'm sure you can relate to that as well. So hold on one second. Yeah, Dennis wants to. Yeah, we'll open up the phone lines in a little bit here. Let's hang out with Tessa for just a little bit first. So, did you know Dave at all before? Did you know him before he asked you to host? Like, were you friends with him at all, or he just?
Yeah, I had actually. They were talking about a UFO conference out in San Francisco, and I live in the southwest corner of Colorado, and a few of our friends in the chat room were supposed to be there, and so I was like, I for sure got to go and meet these people in person, because you do develop these friendships online with people. So I just really wanted to meet them one-on-one, and so I drove out there, 1,700 miles in one day, and ended up sleeping in my car because nobody would rent out to me because they're thinking I'm a fucking prostitute,
Right.
I'm like, no, I just want some sleep. I'm a mother of four, and if I can just get 3 hours of sleep and a place to shower, that'd be great. And nobody wanted to do it. So slept in the Walmart parking lot in my car and got up the next day, found a rec center that didn't accept cards. So I had to walk and look for a freaking ATM and went back and showered, got ready, and went to the conference. And the whole time I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing there? Like, this whole thing has just been a whole catastrophe so far, but it was well worth it. I got to meet Eric and Dave and Go Teresa and Grant Cameron and Tamara, and I mean, so many amazing people. And it was my first conference as far as UFO conferences go, and it was really an awesome experience, and I'm glad I did it. So we did get to meet in person and hang out and get to know each other and get to know a little bit of the crew, and so we did have that meeting, and we've been really good friends. I wish we all didn't live so far apart. It'd be nice to hang out some more, but we're shooting for a Vegas trip, gonna play some poker and get our party on someday.
Nice. I
Keeps
love
getting pushed
Vegas.
out further and further.
God, I love Vegas. Even though obviously I play a lot of poker, but even if it wasn't for that, it's just it's almost like going on a cruise or something. It's like going into it's like its own little world there. Like you can walk down the street with a bottle of whiskey in your hand and nobody gives a shit. You actually can't even get in trouble for that there. And
Oh, really? I'll have to remember that next time.
yeah, you can walk on the strip. That is only on the strip, obviously. And plus, they just got a lot of good entertainment. They got Fat Burger out there. They got In-N-Out. I mean, they got everything. They got everything. The only part is it costs money. That's the only part that sucks.
Right.
But me and my friends, we every few years we all get together and go out to Vegas as well. But yeah, that and that's you brought up these conferences. That's one of my favorite things about this industry is I love going to all these conferences, especially like you said, you get to hang out with especially Grant. He's one. He's very conducted throughout the day, but then once the day's over and it's just us in the bar and nobody else is around, he's one of the funniest guys when he cuts loose a little bit. Has a couple of
he's so
drinks.
much fun.
I love that guy. Yeah, I just saw him last weekend at the we were at the Big Bear Lake Conference and whoops a daisy, and that was it was a very small conference, but it was really good too at the same time. Now, are you going to be going to Conscious Life Expo or Contact in the Desert, or what do you have coming up as far as conferences go?
I haven't really planned anything. I definitely would like to go to Contact in the Desert, and anytime I hear of a conference that's near me, I'd like to go. It just depends on what's going on in my life at the moment and if I can afford it. Fortunately, I got this really, really awesome security gig where I'm making some good money, so I'm hoping to save up for some of these and be able to meet some more people that I've seen online and meet them personally and really get a feel for them. Because like you said, certain people are really conducted, and then all of a sudden the party's on and it's a whole different side of them, and you really, really get to know them and what awesome, amazing, fun people they are. And it was funny. We were all up in the room, me and Tamara and Go Teresa and Dave, and all of a sudden there's this knock on the door, and everybody looks at each other like, wow, who could that be? And I'm like, I'll get it. And it was Grant, he's got a tie on sideways and got a cool selfie with them and stuff. And yeah, he was just a lot of fun. And all these people, they're just really open-minded and really cool, down-to-earth people.
Yeah, and and that's the thing about a lot of these conferences is, you can go see the lectures, but really the best part about it is meeting all different types of people from different walks of life and all the conversations that are had in between the lectures and afterwards in the bar or whatever. Like that's really where all the magic is, and all the networking obviously too. I would highly you should really try to come out to the Conscious Life Expo, which is it's out here at the Hilton LAX in Los Angeles. It's from February 22nd through the 25th. It's the weekend of the 25th, whatever that is. And I would love to I'd love to introduce you to some good folks, and you'll definitely have a good time, and you'll definitely make some good connections, because other than Contact in the Desert, this is probably the second largest conference in the world, and it's my second favorite one. Obviously, Contact is my favorite. You can't really beat that. Although I've got to say, I was really, I wouldn't say bummed. I was actually pissed off at first when I found out that they were moving it to Indian Wells at the hotel, because for years it was always at outside at in Joshua Tree, which is such a magical place. And I don't know, I've got a lot of attachments to that place. And then when they moved it, I felt offended. I was like, how dare you move the conference? And but turns out I loved it anyway. It was just as good as any of the others, if not better. The hotel is really cool, and yeah, it's a good deal. And apparently, I guess they're signed. It's going to be there for the next 4 years. Have you ever been to Contact before? Any of them?
No, I haven't. Like I said, my first one was the UFO conference in San Francisco. And I didn't even get to see the Golden Gate Bridge. I saw the tippy tops of it, but I was in such a hurry to get there and help Dave out with his booth and everything that I didn't really get to take in all the, touristy sites. But no, that was my one and only conference as far as, the paranormal or UFOs or whatnot. But I've heard a lot of good things about it, and that's like on the top of my conference bucket list. I really want to get there. And
yeah, well, let me tell you, trust me, you want to be at Contact. If there's only one conference you do this year, make it Contact, and if there's two, make it Contact and Conscious Life, which is the one I just talked about is happening this month. That's what I live for, basically. I love those conferences. I don't think there's enough conferences, in my opinion, but that's just me. And so anyway, so let me ask you this. At this point in time, what's the number one thing that you're researching or looking into that is, any kind of mystery or anomaly that's really at the front of your brain at this point that you just can't get enough information on and you just can't quite figure out what's going on with it? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, one I've got coming up here on the 23rd is with RL, and we're going to be talking about Ed and the Coral Castle and how exactly it's built. And he's got this, replica of the box and I guess it costs a lot of money to build, but supposedly this is the main thing that drove his tools as far as how he was able to lift these large coral stones and whatnot. And just hearing him talk about gravity is actually magnetism and all these other things that really just, what? Because you've always heard about gravity during school and learned certain things, and then you hear this different perspective on it, and it really does make you kind of open your mind and want to learn more about it. So I'm really excited about that, having him on there. And this whole disclosure with the UFOs, I've taken pictures in my backyard. I've got shuttlecraft I've shared on Facebook just this last month, and even alien orbs with the liquid fire going through it. Seeing those, which I didn't see until about 2012, and my dad had always talked about it, but I'm always like, I don't know, but just seeing it in person, makes you wonder, what exactly are they doing here? What do they want? And then you hear all these different theories. So yeah, I'm just constantly hearing new and different things and wanting to learn more, and I can't really just pin it down to one. I've had a lot of paranormal experience in my life, and when somebody tells me, well, you're never going to believe this, well, try me. Fact to me is stranger than fiction, and there's so many amazing things going on in our world that so many people just are clueless about. They don't think it to be true, and once you experience it, it's hard to deny it. And even these newer things coming out that people are talking about, I'll do some studying on it and get my own perspective on it. And I just really love hearing their perspective and what their experiences are. And it makes you feel like not such a loon. You grow up feeling kind of rejected by people and like the odd man out. And once you meet these people, it's just like you feel like you're at home. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, there's so many different guests I've had on Sasquatch. We've heard things doing security, like up in Rico, Colorado. We've heard big boulders being tossed down the side of the mountain and different eerie, like screeching noises. And that's not a bear. And so we've gone back up to investigate while we're not on the job, and I actually got to find some tracks, but I've never really seen one in person. So, there's different organizations like the Rocky Mountain Bigfoot organization and stuff. I just like to pair up with people and go out and see if I can see anything. But the way life is, the man likes to keep you down, so it's hard to get out there as often as you'd like. So, hey, if anybody wants to sponsor us, that'd be great.
Yeah, and okay, I definitely want to get back to Ed Lead Skolnin, because it's funny. I was just watching a documentary about that this morning with my co-host Darren over at his house, and I mean, I've known about that for years, but it's still okay. So yeah, I'm gonna get back to that in a second. But yeah, once you have your first. By the way, Dennis in the chat room says, Tessa, you do good work. Much appreciated. So there you go, Tessa. Now, yeah, because when you actually see a UFO for yourself, it's a pretty big moment. I mean, everything kind of changes. Everything does change, really, and it's just sort of I know what I saw kind of thing, and it's like, okay, that was obviously that thing moved in a way that's just in fucking possible, and really what got me, quick little story that really got me started and interested in all this information. So I was living in North Hollywood at the time, and a little pretense, this will make sense in a minute, I had just downloaded the latest this was like 2010. I had just downloaded the latest episode of Ancient Aliens, but I had to go to school, so I didn't start it, but I had it loaded, pushed pause at the beginning, went to school, came back, and as I'm parking my car, I see this blatant silver round object just chilling in the sky. It was just sitting there. And so there's two really interesting parts about this. One is, as I'm looking at it, I'm staring at it for a couple of minutes. Didn't even think to get my phone or anything. I'm just looking at it, because I'm trying to figure out, is it moving? And finally, after a couple of minutes, I realized, no, this thing's not moving. It's just sitting there, and it's a ball. What is this? And then I pretty much figured out it's a UFO. And here's the interesting part: is the split second that I had the thought of, I wonder if this thing is aware that I'm looking at it. As soon as that thought crossed my mind, that thing took off. And the way it took off is the most interesting part. Is the only way I can explain it is, do you remember those old shitty that company Tiger used to produce those really shitty portable handheld games that you'd buy at like Walmart or Toys R Us, where they didn't even really have graphics. It was just there were fixed positions for the character. So if you were on the left and you pushed right, the left one would light off, and then the one on the right would light on. Like, there was no transition. It's just, you're there, and then all of a sudden you're here, right? And that's exactly how it took off. Like, it was there, 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 and then it was gone. Like, it just, like a flash, almost as if you had a strobe light on. It was here 1 second, it was there 1 second, but all in the matter of about 2 seconds. I'm like, okay, what the fuck? That was like my real first UFO sighting. But then, here's the synchronicity trippy part. So I go back in my apartment. Well, I was living in a garage, actually. So I go back to the garage, and I pull up the video of Ancient Aliens. I push play, and the very first thing it says, it opens up, it's got the ambient music, and then the narrator goes, UFOs over Los Angeles. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? What the fuck? Are you serious? Like, that was I just saw a UFO over Los Angeles. And, that was a really trippy moment. And, yeah, I've just been never-endingly fascinated with this ever since. But, yeah, Coral Castle, man. That's really, folks, if you haven't looked into that, there's a really good, and actually, I'll just share this link in the chat room. Highly recommend you guys check this out. So there's a documentary series. You may or may not have seen it. It's called Ancient Knowledge. This was put out over the course of a couple of years, back from like 2012 to 2014, I believe. And but in this one, part 6, well, there's 3 different part 6s, but the part 1 of part 6, they go into a lot of, it's a lot of math and a lot of sacred geometry, but it relates to the techniques that may or may not have been used at Egypt. And then it goes into Ed Leedskalden, the guy who built Coral Castle. And, if you recall, first of all, obviously, he never let anybody see what he was doing. Nobody was ever allowed to see how he built it, and it really is, it's considered the only modern megalithic structure. Nobody's ever built something in a way that we can't, even the best scientists and construction crews, they wouldn't be able to, at least not with one. And he was a tiny little man. What was he, like 5'6"? He was a small little guy. He could probably barely pick up my cat, much less much less these tons and tons of stones. And so he did write that little book, right, where he's pretty frank about it, and he just straight up says, I discovered the techniques that were used to build the pyramids, and here's my proof that I know how to do it, because he built a whole fucking thing. And it's not just the actual construction, right? It's all of the and what they talk about in the link that I'm sharing right now. There it goes in the chat room. There is a lot of symbology. Hey, what's up, Rachel? There's a lot of it wasn't just a bunch of random structures. Like, everything has a purpose. There's a hidden message, just like the alchemists did when they built the all of those cathedrals back in the 12 and 1300s. Every bit of architecture was done with intention, with message, and with symbols behind it. And and this one guy did it all by himself. And it really comes down to that little mystery box he had, doesn't it? Which what do you think that is? What do you think that little mystery box is?
Well, the rebuild that RL did has they're probably about 4 to 6 inches tall, 2 coils on the side and one little 3-inch coil in the middle.
Right.
And there's 2 wires coming out of the top. You attach a battery to the bottom portion of it, make contact with the lower coils, and then you attach whatever wiring to do all this work through and down to the stones. You wrap it around the stones and so on and so forth. And it all goes back to the funding again. Like, he took it out of his own pocket to make this box, which is the exact size as Ed had made. And he's showing how to do it, and he's hoping somebody else will pick it up, or maybe he'll get some funding and be able to finish and get the full thing going on, and be able to harness the energy to lift these stones using basically electricity and magnetism. So that's pretty awesome. And the cool thing about Ed, not only did he build it, then he took it apart and rebuilt it somewhere else,
Yeah.
He go tell the guy, hey, go have some lunch, come back, I'll have it loaded. And the guy's like, really? I can't see that happening, but he'd come back and it's all loaded up. So, it's pretty interesting, and it just really blows your mind. And kind of like, with Tesla, okay, so Ed gets sick, goes to the hospital, comes back. There's a lot of, I think he ended up passing away, but a lot of his tools were missing. Did he have the forethought to go out and hide these tools, or did somebody come in while he was at the hospital, just like happened with Tesla when he passed? He had all of these crates full of blueprints and information of weapons and all these different things that he had created throughout the years, and then you're just left with 3. Like, where'd the rest of it go? Where did Ed's tools go? So you only see just the minor portion of his tools that really don't make sense as to how he moved these things. But yeah, it's just insane. And I hope somebody really does go and take RL's information and try to do their own thing and prove how the pyramids were made, and how Ed did it. It would be epic to see in action.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because it's one thing, to find something that's been there for 10,000 years and wonder, like, how the fuck? But this is this happened, this is recently. This is like, what was it, back in the, what was it, 40s, 50s, something like that, when Ed built those things. I mean, this was in the last, in our lifetime, essentially, our parents' lifetime anyway. And, but yeah, see that, that little box, that mysterious box that obviously, as far as we can deduce, has something to do with how he was able to lift all these stones, but also the other device the device that the box sat on top of, which you described pretty good earlier. The design of it is really interesting because there's a Fibonacci pattern to where all the coils are positioned from, and that same exact pattern is on a very famous ancient Egyptian relief found over there in Egypt that is, mainstream archaeologists it doesn't matter when the pyramids were built. Those reliefs were probably put there, a good, 5,000 or 8,000 years ago, even though the structure is much older than that. I think, I don't think what we call the Egyptians, somebody else built it. I think they found it, and then they decorated it and claimed it. But that's just my opinion there. But it's interesting how there's a, I wish I could pull up the image. I can't remember what it's called. Somebody knows what I'm talking about, but it's one of the most famous Egyptian reliefs that's shown in documentaries all the time. And there's a little device, I can only call it. There's a little thing there that doesn't really seem to be doing anything in the scene, but it actually turns out to be a very important symbol that once again relates to the golden ratio and alchemy and the mystery schools. It's tied in with that. And then here we have Ed Leeds Skolden with this device that has it's the exact same shape. I mean, there's really no two questions about that. And it's interesting because that seems to be the device that allowed him to essentially magically maneuver and handle these tons and tons of stones all by himself. And it has something to do with the way he was able to, whether he's figured out a way to null the gravity in the area or what. But the mathematics is really where it gets interesting to me, and probably where it gets boring for a lot of people. A lot of people don't feel like sitting there and following math equations, right? But if you actually do sit there and you look at what's going on here, like that link I posted earlier, very mathematically heavily based. Like that's, you can't be drunk or stoned and get anything out of that. Like you got to be full paying attention, probably taking notes and kind of follow along. And if you really do that, it really just blows your mind. Like, wow, there is so much more than life than going to work at T-Mobile and then going home and watching Netflix and going to sleep and doing it all over again. Like, there's some real shit going on out here, and has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. And it's kind of amazing to me how some people just simply, they don't care about any of this stuff. Like some of my best friends, like you couldn't pay him to listen to my show. He just doesn't care. Like, and that's one thing that really fascinates me too. It's like, how does this not blow your mind? How do you not want to know what's going on here, right?
Right. I mean, it's so interesting and intriguing to me, and I do want to see more. I want to see how exactly this works, but there are people out there that, it really doesn't interest them because, there's no way really for it to promote or enhance their lives. When for other people like us, we, even though we don't incorporate it into our everyday lives, just having that knowledge of such is just, I don't know, the payoff in the end, really, to me.
Yeah, and honestly, the friend I was just speaking of, along with a couple of others, I don't know about where you were at the time, but when Zeitgeist came out, the first one, and this is something that's kind of weird too, is this was, what was it, 2007, 2008. This was before, YouTube was super like all of a sudden a bunch of copies of Zeitgeist DVDs were all of a sudden being passed around in my hometown, back in Houston. It's almost like some kind of inside sort of like somebody just dropped off a whole bag. They hired a couple of people to hand them out, and all of a sudden everybody had it. Like, I've never seen anything like that ever happen in my life, where all of a sudden, this randomly produced thing, these bootleg DVDs are just all of a sudden everybody has one. And it hit our town like a wave. I mean, it really, it clicked on a lot of shit for a lot of people. And, although some of the information is obviously controversial, but I think it served its purpose, which is, hey, there's some shit going on behind the scenes here. Maybe you should pay attention. But a couple of most of us were just blown away, and we started doing research, right? But there's a couple of friends, and it took them a few years to actually crack down and say this. But I finally, because I send him links from time to time, and everything I send him, he always... he turns into Richard Dawkins all of a sudden, just like, yeah, well, it's probably this or it's probably that. And then finally, I just confronted him one day. I'm like, dude, what's up? Like, I know you're smarter than this. Like, why are you not? And he told me. He was like, honestly, it freaks me out, it scares me, and I don't want to know. And so, you know what? Fair enough. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that, it's might be better for them to just be blissful and just have their hot dog cookouts every Sunday instead of doing radio shows or whatever.
Right.
Maybe some people aren't ready for it, and in fact, I do believe we like to say in this industry, let's get on with this disclosure thing. We all believe it already. We're ready for it. We can take it. I've seen two people in particular that. One of which had a real experience that I was there and saw it with him, but it changed him in a very negative way. He's basically, how do I want to put it? Like, he's not capable of being a functioning member of society, directly related to this event. It changed, it blew his reality away to the point where he got so obsessed, and he starts, at first it was kind of like, okay, he's really into it, but then he just basically went crazy. And and to this day, he's living at his mom's basement, attic rather. It's kind of more of an attic situation, but same deal. And still one of my best friends. I love him, but I've definitely seen some people being exposed to things that maybe they weren't quite ready to see. I've seen that ruin people's lives, so I can understand why. But I feel like in general, if you took an actual survey that every single person, at least in this country, participated in, I think it would be overwhelming that most and more of the people are kind of on our side of, there's UFOs, somebody built these structures, they're way older than we think, and all this stuff we talk about in these shows. I think most people are hip to it, and I guess it's just the mainstream media, really, that kind of makes it, they still talk about it like it's woo-woo, right? I mean, but at least they're talking about it. Ever since, December 2017, the whole thing with the Pentagon program, that definitely opened a door of credibility. You can call it, I guess, when it comes to this stuff being talked about in the public, which I'm not sure how good... Because here's the thing about the government. Like, I don't know, have you ever seen those commercials where, the other day I was on YouTube and there was a beef commercial. It was a commercial for beef. Not a brand of beef, not a company. Just beef in itself. Somebody felt the need, and somebody in our government spent a lot of money to run a commercial that just says, hey, beef exists, you should eat it. You know, like what is that really necessary? Like what's so immediately I get skeptical like, are they doing something to the beef that they want us to consume it for? Like what's going on here? And same thing with there's another commercial that was just about artificial intelligence. Same thing. There was no company attached to it, no business. Nobody was making any money off of it. They just wanted you to know that artificial intelligence is okay. It's like, well, if the government wants us to think that, that kind of makes me think maybe it's not okay. You
Yeah,
know,
right.
like
And everything I've
why?
seen on AI really freaks me out because, they have these different, like human form AIs out there, and it's all good and well at first, but then they all come back to the same thing, dominating the human race. And someday I'm gonna have little pet humans in a zoo, and you're one of my favorites, so you'll be there, but the rest of them will be dead, and, and all these other crazy things. And yeah, I have never really trusted my government, and then especially after being in the Marine Corps, like now I even more don't trust them. So yeah, when they're trying to tell you this is good, you should try it, or AI is good, you should have one. I mean, I think
Yeah.
I'll go the opposite direction. Thank you very much.
I'm right there with you. And, actually, I had, I'm not going to get into the story here because my audience has heard it before, but, yeah, you might be interested. I'll send you a link after the show, but, I did go on the air once and explain this whole thing. But, I used to work for a corporation in North Hollywood, well, in Hollywood, actually, back in 2010, 2011. And I was just kind of an errand runner. I really, I wasn't developing anything. I was just there. But
Mm.
this corporation they're the ones that developed the artificial intelligence that is currently used by Facebook and Clear Channel and all the government got their hands on it, that's what the whole scandal was over. Is you know the whole corporation was a very spiritual, positive bunch of people. Like we were, we slash they were developing it for all of the good potential uses, but we also were quickly discovering if this gets in the wrong hands, like things could get really sketchy. And they tried to buy us out, and then they tried to pay us to stop. And then at that point, that's when shit got really crazy. I'm talking about above the law. Um, Everything from stalking to I mean, it got so crazy that I actually got a federal court order to move out of Los Angeles to get
Oh,
out of the
geez.
situation. Yeah, that's how, and it's because they and we all got court orders to get out. And in fact, at one point, a LAPD police officer, we caught a police officer breaking in to our office, going through our computers, going through our folders. We've got it all on tape, and turns out, yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. Sony paid the guy to go in there and break in, and of course, he never got fully charged. The case got dropped, and we lost. I think that's where they got a lot of information out of that, and so yeah, it fell into the wrong hands, and yeah, that was a pretty crazy situation. And it's especially for me because I'm not really like, I just kind of got caught up in this thing that I really have no business being a part of. I was just, basically a secretary, I guess, is what you could call what I was. But it was really, and that was probably the second main thing that really got me into all of this, what we do on these radio shows is I saw firsthand what really goes on behind the scenes and at what lengths they can go so above the law to the point of using the police to achieve their means. And yeah, really
Makes
crazy
you
stuff.
wonder, was that really a police officer or was it a government worker dressed as a police officer? Like, how else do you get away with charges? I mean, cops do all the time, but he had to be, pretty high up there or, some sort of secret agent or whatnot to break in there and get this stuff and get away with it. I mean, that's just insane.
Yeah, I mean that's the craziest part is he got away scot-free, no problem whatsoever. I mean, I remember we had a meeting where the whole meeting was about, okay, anything that has to do with artificial intelligence, no more texts, no more emails, only pencil and paper, not even pen, just pencil and paper, because we can't trust anybody right now. Like, obviously, there was somebody on the inside of our camp that was, they had somebody on the inside. There's no way they could have known. Like, there were times, for example, okay, so I've used this analogy before. Imagine you, let's say you wake up one morning, right? You're doing your morning routine. Let's just say that usually you put on your slippers, right? You got your little house slippers. Let's say you go to brush your teeth, and then bam, you didn't put your slippers on this morning, and you stub your toe right against that counter. Bam! Like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's bothering you, right? Like, okay, whatever. You get done, and then get yourself together, and then you go down to the local coffee shop, right? And then a stranger comes up to you with an unnatural smile on his face. He goes, "Hey, how's your day going?" And you'll just be like, "Good. What's up, man?" And then he says, "Probably should have put your slippers on this morning, huh?" And then walks off. Like that kind of shit. But related to the artificial intelligence. Like, there's no way you could have known to even have said those words unless you're very much more on the inside than you would imagine that you could be. Right?
Yeah.
So it got really sketchy, really scary. But yeah, I explained the whole scandal on Joe Roop's show, Lighting the Void, back in 2017. I'll send you the link in case you're interested.
Yeah, for sure.
Show. But anyway, okay, so we're almost an hour through. I know we wanted to, a couple people. Are you okay with having some call-ins?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, cool. Well, all right, so here you go, Dennis, or anybody else who wants to call in. The call-in number is 928-485-4856. I'm putting in chat right now again for the audio-only folks. That's 928-485-4856. That's one thing I think that, I don't know, it always kind of bothers me how a lot of other radio hosts, they just, they're like, all right, call in 928-485-456. All right, let's move on. Like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
give us a second. So I try to make sure to say it pretty slowly.
And with the whole, wanted to get to the whole Ed Lee Skolin thing.
Yeah.
If you guys want to check that out, you can go on to YouTube, where R.L. Poole has his channel, and he describes a lot of these different things and theories and such. And he even shows you, this little, or big box, it's actually a pretty big one, that he created. But you can go to Talking to Lead Skolin on YouTube, and that's all together. There's no spaces or whatnot, but Talking to Lead Skolin. And he's got some really interesting things to say and show there. He's pretty interesting guy.
Okay, I don't think I've seen this particular. Oh, that's his channel, is Talking to Lead Skolin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he's got different videos on there, and one of them being like the one I shared with you, is showing his box that he created, the coils, and how exactly it works. And then hoping somebody will pick it up and run with it, or maybe somebody will invest and we'll get it further on into production as far as getting the tripod and all the other stuff there to get it up and running. But, just like I'm saying, people got to work, so it's hard to find the time and the funds really to get it done. Like, this box really actually cost him quite a bit to produce. But it's pretty interesting. And I love it when people take these old things and they share them or try to learn more about them and then share what they've learned with people, so we don't all have to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And he's got a pretty funny sense of humor, so he's fun to watch. I like watching him. Right
on. Yeah, out of all the research I've done specifically about Cora Castle, kind of surprised I've never heard of this guy. So I'm definitely going to be checking this out after the show for sure. Which, by the way, I posted a link to the channel in the chat room for you guys. If you want to check it out again, it's Talking to Lead Skolin on YouTube. That's the channel. And and the other part about the whole about Ed's whole story is, at least according to him in his book, his main intention, I mean, obviously part of the intention must have been to prove that he figured out how some shit worked and he proved it. But also, it was one of those classic, he had a girlfriend or perhaps even a wife, the one that got away sort of story, right? And he moved from Europe to America, and he built this whole structure. The whole Coral Castle, the original one, was his. That was his attempt. He did that purely just to show. He put all of that effort in to show how much he loved this girl and was hoping that maybe she'd be proud of him and maybe she'd come back, but she never did, and they never. I don't even think they ever talked again. Still, and so that's kind of sad. I mean, it's very touching that he, produced one of the greatest achievements in modern history just for this girl that he loved so much. And then on top of that, she still didn't give a shit about him.
Right.
So that's kind of sad, but it is touching that he went through all of that just for that reason. But I'm sure there were other reasons too. But according to him in his little book, which I used to have a little transcript of it, I don't know where it is, but yeah, pretty touching story.
One of the interesting things that you find if you go to the Coral Castle is, the different planets he has up there. And
right.
There's an alignment of these certain planets. And it actually, if you look back on the star calendar or whatever it is, it actually shows the exact date that he built the Coral Castle. Just by looking at these planets, and this certain alignment dates back to the time when he actually built the castle. So that was a pretty cool thing that I discovered talking to RL and such. I'm like, wow, to go through all that trouble there's kind of like these different puzzles or whatnot that he wants you to figure out. And this was one of them. Like, this is the date it was built by the alignment of the stars at this certain time in history. It's pretty interesting, the little things that he did that people really don't pick up on until you dig deeper.
Yeah, I mean, you could study that thing for 2 weeks and still not get all the clues he left there. And he did leave some serious clues. And that link I shared earlier in the chat, the Ancient Knowledge documentary episode, part 6.1, is it really goes into that, and they dissect every little bit of that Coral Castle. And there's especially a lot of, not only the mathematical stuff, which directly, correlates with these ancient alchemical traditions that apparently whatever technology he's using, that whoever built the pyramids and the stuff in Peru and all that stuff, there's whatever those secrets were, he's giving codes out through numbers, through the positions of the planets and the alignments and the distance of each structure that he put up there. And more especially, there's a lot of the alignments and a lot of the symbolism all seems to revolve around the planet Saturn. And then that's a whole nother rabbit hole you go down. Once you go down the Saturn stuff and the history of the cults and even the Vatican and everybody that's the planet Saturn just seems to be at the center of, we don't know what's going on here. We're still trying to figure it out. But Saturn, for some reason, seems to have a big role in all this, or a big significance in all of the, in all of the secrets that are trying to be passed around through structures like these. Now, when you say RL, are you talking about the guy that runs that YouTube channel?
Yeah, RL Pool.
And that's the guy you're going to have on the 23rd?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm super stoked.
Oh, boy, I'm excited too. Yeah, I'm definitely going to tune in for that. And, yeah, that's going to be a good show. So do you do, was it 3 hours or 4 hours that you do?
We do 3.
Okay, that's right. Yeah, that is going to be a good show. Yeah, I think Dennis just went away. I know he wanted to call in. He'll probably be back in a little bit. But
yeah, shoot him. I'm like, we're friends on Facebook. Shoot him a message. Hey, the number's up, because he was really wanting to call in. That was funny.
Yeah, he usually ends up calling in, and Yeah, I love that guy. He's definitely he's one of a kind. One of a kind. As is everybody in Internet Somalia, I might add. Wow, they're all still there duking it out. I can't believe what kind of chaos is going on over there. But yeah, and another so before we did the other night, before we did the simulcast thing, the first part, which I basically just ranted. I didn't even have a guest for most of the first part. I just went on to rant about the fucking moon, the Apollo missions, and what the fuck. So I'm just curious to hear your take, of everybody you've talked to and everything you've learned throughout your time doing radio and everything you've researched. First of all, what do you think about the Apollo missions?
I don't know. Like, you watch the videos and it's really cool, but then you hear these different people pointing out different things. Look at the flag waving. Look at the footprints. They're not the same as the one here, but they did have attachments on the bottom of their boots, kind of magnetically attached. That would make sense, but I mean, I don't know. Why go through all that trouble except for it was a space race between us and other countries? So I could see that it could have been faked, but then at the same time, you don't want to believe it,
Yeah, because...
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a couple of things that I can tell that you're probably not fully... You just maybe have not come across this information yet, which is... well, there's really three big factors here. One is... I don't know if you're familiar with Bart Seibel. He's kind of been in hiding for the last few years. I don't know why he hasn't. He just kind of shut up after a while. But he put out a couple of documentaries. One is called "Astronauts Gone Wild." That was the first one, which is it's worth watching. But the real one is called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon." And both of these documentaries, you can just look them up on YouTube. But especially in "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon." So here's what happened: is they went to NASA in Houston. And through some, official, oh boy, Jewish producers showing up. He might crash the show in a minute. So that's his name, by the way.
We're friends.
Yeah. Okay.
I've talked to him before. He's pretty entertaining.
Oh, I love that guy. In fact, we're actually, most people think we hate each other, which, I mean, we kind of do, but we also get along. And we're actually working on a new project coming up in a couple months here.
It's like a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't have any problem with him, but he definitely gets annoyed by me, for sure. So, and understandably so. I get it. But, in fact, if you look on I actually put it on the B-Sides and Rarities, if you go to the B-Sides and Rarities channel on your computer, and it shows you the, it shows you the information about the show. What I did was I put a bunch of critic reviews, and one of them is from a Jewish producer, and he said, "Gigi is like a sloppy Joe sandwich, full of non sequitur filler, gives instant diarrhea, and makes me want to stab my eardrums out with a dental tool."
Oh,
And I actually used that to promote the channel.
Yeah, for sure. You got to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, so that's what I was saying. So in that documentary, a funny thing happened. A funny thing happened on the way to the moon. So what they did was they went to NASA, and this was right at the end of the documentary. They were already done with it, and then they decided to go get. I don't know if it's exactly the Freedom of Information Act, but something like that, where they were allowed to request reels of footage that they had from the Apollo missions. More specifically, the original moon landing with Buzz and Armstrong and Collins, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, whether it was accidental or not, it's either the guy at NASA wanted it to get out, or it really did accidentally get given to them. Either way, it was top secret, classified. Nobody was supposed to see this. It says it at the beginning of the footage, and he shows in the documentary. You can go watch it right now. And what it is it's them faking a shot of the moon. And what I mean by that is they were in near Earth orbit, which according to the date and time, they were supposed to be in lunar orbit at the time, but yet they were still in near Earth orbit. And what they did was they turned out all the lights in the shuttle, because from that vantage point, if you were to try to take to video the moon or take a shot, or the Earth rather, take a video of the Earth or take a photo of it, right? You would not be far away enough to do it. You would only, through the window, you would only get a little section of the Earth. So what they did is they turn off the lights, they put the camera all the way on the other side of the shuttle, and they used the window to make it look, it's just a little circular cutout of a part of the Earth, but with the lights turned out, it looks like the whole Earth. And so they do this whole scene, and you can hear them talking in the background, like, does that look real enough? Does this look good? And then finally, at the end, they go cut, then they turn on the lights, and then you can see, you can see the window and how they cut out the Earth. So you got to ask right there, wait a minute. If you're really out there by the moon, why are you faking a shot of the Earth from near Earth orbit? Why wouldn't it be a lot easier to just take a photo once you got there, right? And then, again, that gets into the Van Allen belt thing, which is probably why they had to do it. I would imagine, and that's the other thing, with the Van Allen belt, that radiation belt, to put this in perspective, in 1992, NASA made an announcement saying, we're making some improvements, and basically, I'm paraphrasing. What they said is, in the coming years, we will be able to figure out a way to get humans past the Van Allen belt alive. Well, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Because 20 years ago, you were supposed to have gone through that to get to the moon. You're telling us right now that you still don't know how to get people alive through it? So then you got that controversy.
So we got zombies coming back from the moon? Like, what is happening?
I mean, and not only that, the footage itself would not, if you really look into the levels of radiation, I mean, just the footage itself, especially the kind of film they were using, that would have been melted like like if you just put a slice of cheese in the microwave for 30 seconds. Just imagine how that would melt. Like, I mean, that's the kind of radiation we're talking about. And but then here's the real kicker is, so all this technology, the greatest achievement in human history, right? Landing on the moon. I mean, what the fuck else have we done better than that, right? But
right, sliced bread.
They lost all of the telemetry data is gone. All of the data of how the mission was pulled off, how everything worked, all of a sudden is missing. And we're talking about like thousands of like reels of data at the time, and all of a sudden they're just all gone. And then, what was it, like 96 or 97, one of the NASA officials came out, because after 25 years, people are wondering, hey, how come, what happened to the whole moon thing? Why did we stop going, And basically, after enough years of people asking this, they came out with an official statement, and I shit you not, this is their official reason why we haven't been back to the moon. They straight up said, we lost the technology that we had, that we used to get to the moon.
Yeah, how does that happen?
What the fuck? That's like saying, computers, the internet came out in in the early 90s, right? And then computers got better. Let's say in 2002, all of a sudden we stopped making computers. And then somebody asks why, and the internet goes down like, we lost the technology to make computers. Are you sure? Because that sounds like a really shitty excuse to me. And there's just so much fuckery around the whole situation. But ultimately, I think we've been there. I'm just not sure we went there using the technology that they made us thought they... Either we went there using some other classified technology that was not made public, and they made it look like we just strapped a bunch of humans to a firecracker and launched them up there.
Right.
Or I think maybe, honestly, I think they really did want to go to the moon, and I think they thought it was possible. I think what's most likely is, they realized, oh shit, we can't get past this Van Allen belt. But we just told everybody we're going to the moon. And plus, at that time, Russia had every space achievement Russia did first. First animal in space, first human in space, first anything in space. And then all of a sudden, the U.S., without doing any of that, all of a sudden successfully lands, two guys, I guess, technically, on the moon, like out of nowhere. Like, okay, we don't even need to get into all the footage and the photos and stuff. I mean, that's beyond
the one picture that keeps coming to mind is, when the craft lands and they get out and it's the first step on the moon. Well, if it's really the first step on the moon, who's the person back there taking the picture,
Yes. Yes.
What's that all about?
Dude, and there's two examples of that. There's that one, right? But then also there's footage of where after they were done on the moon, supposedly, right? Where the lunar lander takes off to go back and reconnect to the shuttle, right? But here's the problem. You see the shuttle on the right side of the shot, and then you see the lunar rover lifting over here. Well, wait a minute. Who the fuck is filming this?
You're right.
And here's the thing. Because back then, they didn't know the internet was going to be a thing. As far as they knew, they just had to show it one time only on television, and nobody would ever see the footage again. Like, they thought it was just going to be a one-time deal, just make it look good enough. But little do they know, the internet came out, and now we can actually inspect this footage with all this technology. And it's just like, man, you guys are full of fuck all around. I mean, I have a feeling we have been to the moon, and I think there's probably a good reason why we're not really going back, even though China's up there right now, although not with humans. And that's another thing. Hey, China, while you're up there, can you take a fucking photo of the moon? Is there any reason why nobody's ever taken a single picture of the moon? Just one snapshot that's not a composite image? Any reason for that? Come on, China. Let's see it. Show us a photo. Anyway.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah. And then that's another... Yeah, I can just go on for days. And yeah, that's basically what I did the other night on the first part of the show. I'll just have to do it again because, I kind of want to do it on the main show, but at the same time, I just get so fired up about this that there's no way that I can properly express myself about this without cussing. So,
Well, good thing we're not on the air.
Exactly. So it's going to have to be on this channel, I guess.
Well, did you see that one video where they're chasing Buzz Aldrin or someone around, and they're like, hey, did you really land on the moon? Well, you put your hand on this Bible and swear to it, and he's like literally running away from this guy. Like, no, Why won't you swear on the Bible that you were there? Or, like, what's the problem? And, security, please remove this guy. But that was pretty funny. Like, why wouldn't you do that if you actually were there? And then you get the different where you can hear them communicating with Houston or whatever, and they're seeing these alien craft. But that could happen, like you're saying, when you're in Earth orbit and you're not past that belt. Like, I'm sure there's craft out there that would be interested in what you're doing. I think he really did see something out there.
I think he did too. Yeah, no, it's pretty. Because they use these code words like Santa Claus and whatever. Like, hey, they're here, or whatever they said. It's like, they're not talking about nothing, right? They're talking about something. And there's a lot of good examples about that. Now, that video you're talking about where Buzz punches him in the face, that's Bart Seibel. That's the guy I was talking about. And that documentary, the first one I told you about, Astronauts Gone Wild, that's what the whole documentary is he went to just about every living astronaut at the time. That was a lot. Like, he went up to like 10 or 12 different astronauts and did that same thing. He obviously he coaxed him into the interview under false pretenses, right? But at the same time, he does the same thing every time. Busts out the Bible and not one of any of those 10 or 12 astronauts would do it. Which, even whether you're religious or, like, if you're religious and you did it, then that should be no problem. Even if you're not religious, then that definitely should be a problem. Because why would you care about putting your hand in the Bible, right? So either way, these guys have, and it wasn't, and that the other guy, I think you're talking about, he was talking about how they faked the footage of the Earth, and the guy's like, oh, really? As if he didn't know. And then Bart's like, yeah, just like the same way you guys did it on Apollo 14 or whatever he was on. And then as soon as he said that, he literally, well, first of all, I told him to like fuck off or something like that. And then he literally ran away. And this is like an old man. You know, this guy's like 75 years old, and he's actually trying to run away from this guy and these guys, they don't want to get caught. And there's another good one where one of the astronauts he was tripping out during the interview because he realized he was getting checkmated and he didn't have a good way to get out of it. But obviously he's, you know, if all this makes sense, you know, obviously he's sworn to some kind of secrecy, and he's like, he starts sweating profusely. Like his whole shirt gets wet. He gets really fucking nervous. It's like, wait a minute, dude. What are you so nervous about? I thought you went to the moon, right? Why can't you just say you went to the moon? It's just there's too much fuckery around the whole moon situation to where at the very least, it did not go down the way we think it did, if it went down at all. And yeah, I have a feeling that they, you know, I think they really did think that they were going to go to the moon, and they really were trying to do it. But I think along the way, whether it was an alien race that kind of said, hey, get your nuclear bullshit, keep that shit away from our moon, we're not letting you out here, right? Or maybe they got to the moon and they found somebody else there, and they probably said the same thing, get your nuclear bullshit out of here. You know, like, I think about it. If you're look at it this way, right? If all of a sudden, let's say, you know, we're filming a documentary. What's that? Planet Earth, right? Let's say they're filming a documentary, and all of a sudden, they see a chimpanzee in the forest that has a little crossbow that he made all by himself. We'd be like, whoa, wait a minute, hold on. What are you guys doing here? You guys are making weapons? What are you doing? You killing each other? What's going on? Let's put a stop to this right now. You're going to take that monkey. You're going to examine him. Like, how the fuck did you figure out how to make this? What the fuck do you plan on doing with this? Like, we would be pretty tripped out if monkeys all of a sudden started making weapons. So imagine if you're, you know, an ET race out there, part of the Galactic Alliance or whatever, and then you see a bunch of basically little kids as far as, you know, maturity goes relative to them. And we're trying, you know, not to mention we launched about 50 nukes up into, not only just into space, we dropped multiple bombs on the moon before we ever went there just to kind of see what it was, you know. Jeez. And they see a bunch of us, you know, shooting nukes up into space, and like we're like out of control little toddlers in their eyes. So of course they're not going to let us go to the moon. Like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Ruin your own planet first, or figure shit out first. You know, you can't, you know, we can't be having this out there. And so that could be the situation too. And I don't know if we'll ever really know. There's too many holes in every different theory, but there's also too much fuckery around the whole original story. So I don't know if we'll ever know. But yeah, that's the one thing that just never endingly fascinates me. There's always new stuff coming out, and it's just like, man, what the fuck?
Did you see that video where they had that Italian female astronaut out there, and she's showing how the window wings work and all this other stuff, you know, that they put over the windows to protect from probably space debris or whatever. And she opens it up, and you see all this trash out there, but then all of a sudden you see this UFO fly by, and it stops and then flies back the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many, and she totally freaks out. I think even she went on a walk about, you know, outside of the craft or whatnot, and saw one and was totally like hyperventilating, and they're like, shh, you know, calm down. I mean, there's so much stuff that they do know about. Why are they keeping it from us? Like, what is it really going to hurt? Yeah, there's a lot of sheeple out there that their heads will probably explode, or, you know, cause total chaos on the freeways and whatnot, killing other people, taking their things or whatever. But I mean, what is the big secret? Why are you hiding these things from us? And what would it hurt for us to really know what's going on? And slowly but surely, like you're saying, there's these different leaks that get out from different people that work there that are like, hey, you know, what is the problem with this? And they'll hand out different videos or different reports or whatnot. But I mean, come on. Yeah,
I mean, well, you know, there's, there's a good quote about this. I want to say, was it Plato, or was it no, I don't think it was Plato. How dare I forget this quote? Somebody,
Nostradamus?
I'm going to have to paraphrase it. No, it wasn't Nostradamus. But basically and I'm paraphrasing here because obviously I haven't memorized it word for word. Hey, what's up, Queen? And basically what he says is, he's talking about the noble lie, where, normally, it's, oh wait, here it is. No. Well, here's one from Robin Williams, randomly, that's actually kind of similar, but not as epic. He says, sometimes it's more noble to tell a small lie than to deliver a very painful truth. But the way that, I want to say it was Plato, but I'm not finding it. One of these ancient guys that one of the founders of, astronomy and science and math, one of those guys, he said, you should never lie to a society unless it truly benefits the well-being of society to lie about it. And honestly, who knows? Maybe they found something up there. First of all, let's think about all this money that's disappearing. Like, remember back in 9/11? What's his name? Rumsfeld or whatever. The day before 9/11, he announced that $3 trillion are missing. $3 trillion. Think about how much money that is. And then the very next day, the one tiny part of the Pentagon that exploded was the one part that had the records that they could have found out what happened to the money. But very conveniently, the next day, that part of the building exploded. First of all, And then second of all, a lot of this money, have you seen the Stephen Greer's latest documentary? Came out like a couple years ago, the Unacknowledged. Did you ever see that?
Huh.
Oh, really? Well, it's on Netflix now. Definitely, I mean, probably, for people like you and me, we've pretty much heard everything, that he says in there. It's nothing new for us. But as far as, like, if you have a friend that's just now getting into this stuff, that's a perfect thing. It's a perfect kind of initiative sort of thing to show them, to just give them a basic outline of where we're at, what we know, and what's going on as far as the secret space program and all that stuff. But I have a feeling that, I don't know if I would say I have a feeling, but I think people, like you said, we're ready, right? Like you and me, at least, specifically. We're ready for the truth. Let's hear it. We know you guys have been seeing UFOs. We know there's been some crashes. We know you reverse engineered the technology. We know all of this. So why keep up the charade? Well, there might be a chance that there is a very good, because when it comes to secrecy, right? Most people assume they relate secrets with negativity. Like, oh, they're keeping this secret from us for a negative reason. They want us to think this for a negative reason. Well, just to play devil's advocate, what if there really is something that big, something that painful, something that reality shattering, like happened to my best friend earlier, like I mentioned earlier? Mm-hmm. What if it really is in the best interest to not discuss this right now, at least until we have a better handle on it? Especially if it comes to a point where the whole world and the whole UN as a whole has to announce to the world that, hey, turns out we're not in control of our planet. Our fate is in the hands of these asshole aliens, and they don't like us at all. That might not be the best thing to say, right? So I can understand why, and the military obviously has kept many different secrets like that obviously on a much smaller scale, but plenty of secrets were kept for years that were truly in the benefit of society. But none of them are, first of all, this big, and none of them have been going on for this long. I mean, people have been talking about this moon shit since it happened. I remember, there's that There's that quote from Bill Clinton wrote that book, right? Basically a biography or autobiography, whatever. And in that book, there's a really interesting part where he says, back when I was working construction, this was sometime the 70s or 80s, I believe, and some guy, somehow he's in a conversation about the moon landings that had just happened. And this guy told Bill Clinton, he was like, you believe that shit? That was obviously fake as fuck. And this is back in like the 70s, right? And so what Bill Clinton says in his book is, he was like, if I were to never have gotten into government, I would have, not given what he said any credence. But after being the president for 4 years, it sounds like that guy's making a lot of, like, basically what he said, he very danced around saying that, yeah, after being in the government, that makes sense. Right? Like he said it without saying it. Like, yeah, the moon shit was bullshit. But at the same time, I think that just comes with humans, though. When it comes to humans going to the moon or wherever. Obviously, we've got, the rovers on Mars, and we've got shit out there by Saturn and Neptune and everything else. But when it comes to humans getting past the Van Allen belt, that's where all the fuckery comes around. And the fact that they're still lying about it, they're still like, it just really bothers me. It really bothers me that it bothers me that it doesn't bother more people. I guess.
Right.
Really. Like, how is this? Like, don't you kind of want to know what's going on here? But, yeah, I mean, I could talk about that forever, really. As you can
Wouldn't
tell.
bother me a bit. But yeah, it's true. And there are people that really don't care. They've got bigger problems to worry about, according to them, which to me, is on a smaller scale. But I mean, there's so much stuff out there that I do want to know. And when people are keeping it from me, it really pisses me off.
Yeah.
For sure.
And, I bet you might not have heard about this. Have you ever heard about, does the name Fulcanelli, does that ring a bell? Do you know who that is? Perfect. Oh, you are gonna love this. So, honestly, I don't even really want to spoil it for you. But basically, it's okay. Just to put it relatively speaking, just as much as Ed Leeds Skolden's Coral Castle, just as much as that's like probably the number one most modern mystery that nobody can explain, right? And that level of epic mysteriousness, right? Well, this whole thing with Fulcanelli, which he's an alchemist, put out a book. He only put out 500 copies of it. The European equivalent of the CIA went after this guy because of what he said, because he knew before the Manhattan Project even officially started, this guy basically put out a book. First of all, the whole book is in code. It's all like alchemical, mystery school code. But once you kind of figure it out, and then in one part, he is pretty clear in the book where he says, there's a group of scientists that are going to use really tiny bits of metal to create huge disasters, and you guys need to chill the fuck out, basically. But he explained so much of he explained more about the technology than the top scientists in not only the Russian government, but also France and the American government. They hadn't even figured out. Like, he basically kind of gave them a couple of tips, like, hey, this is how it's going to work in case you guys haven't figured it out. But, because he knew they were going to figure it out eventually anyway. But they realized, like, who is this guy? How the fuck does he know all this? And to this day, nobody knows who he really is or who he really was. There's so much mystery. And it doesn't just that atomic relation. That's just a very small part of it. I mean, he gets into the book is called The Mystery of the Cathedrals, which there really is a mystery behind the cathedrals. Just like the pyramids and everything else, those cathedrals are built, around the Dark Ages back in the 1200s and 1300s. There are multiple aspects of the construction that we cannot recreate today.
Mm-hmm.
So who the fuck? And but it turns out most of the cathedrals, if not all of them, were built by alchemists. And just like Ed over there at Coral Castle, every bit of architecture was built with very specific, everything was aligned a certain way to give a certain message. And if you're interested in Coral Castle, you will be equally as interested in this. And the last time, the best thing I can share for you is back on Fade to Black. Jay Weidner was on there, and they did 2 episodes about it, but the first one is the main one. And so I'm gonna pull it up right now, Jay, and forget all the other links I shared you. This is the one. Next time you're cooking dinner or going to sleep and you need something to listen to, listen to this. This is one of the biggest modern mysteries that you can imagine. It really is amazing. And especially with all the technology that we have now, that mysteries like these can still go unsolved. That's what makes it even more exciting. Like, man, like even after all these years, we still can't figure out how this guy built these little structures. We still can't figure out who Falconelli was. Pretty crazy stuff. Oh, whoops, that was not the link. I put the wrong thing. Here we go. Bing. Bam. Boom. There it
Right.
is. Okay. Here it goes. All right, here it goes, folks. Yeah, that I just typed in a bunch of words, but there's the link with Jay Weiner, and this was that was a good 4 years ago. And what's really interesting about this specific episode is, if you go to Fade to Black's archives, this is episode 42, which was back in late 2014, I'm guessing. You go down the archives, you'll see episode 45.
Give me a countdown.
You'll see 43. You'll see 41. Well, wait a minute. Where's 42? They took it down. Why did they take it down? And then I asked him about it, and he actually was pretty... he changed the subject immediately. So it's like, I mean, you presented the whole thing 4 years ago, but now you don't, apparently you don't want to talk about it, and you don't want people to see the episode because you took it down. So why is that? That's what that noise
You're
was.
Listening to Fade to Black.
No, you're not
with
listening
your
to
host,
Fade to Black.
Jimmy
Let me
Let
me turn that off.
Hey, stop now, stop.
Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, that's the link right there. And definitely check that out. I think that'll really, you will be absolutely fascinated by it. And one other thing that's really interesting about that. So that was back in the 30s, right? And there's a couple of reprints. I've got the modern reprint version of it, but when I was looking for it, there's a bunch of new copies, but there was one used one on Amazon, and it wasn't even it was maybe $1 cheaper than the new ones, but I just had I don't know, I can't explain it. I had a feeling like I need to get this one, and sure enough, when it came in, there are alchemical notes written all throughout the book, almost like a madman was obsessed with this book. And they're not even they're not words that you and I would understand. They're all mystery school equations with one word will be underlined, which would seemingly be, and basically this guy decoded, at least in his mind, he decoded a bunch of this book and put it out there, and I got that copy. And obviously it's way beyond my comprehension, but the next time I see Jay, I want to show him that, because I think he would actually I don't know, it's pretty interesting. There's a huge little underground cult following / this never-ending investigation into who in the fuck was Fulcanelli, and how does he know all of this shit he's talking about. He even talks about the split between, the Illuminati and the Freemasons back in the 1700s. Apparently there was a big split, and his, because I guess back then it was more based on alchemy, whereas the alchemical, folks kind of broke off and became whatever they are now, whereas now the Illuminati is, needless to say, what we know them to be now. Whereas back then, these two factions used to be one, and he goes into a lot of detail about that, and just very fascinating. Can't speak highly of it enough. So definitely check that out when you get a chance.
Yeah, I have all these pulled up. I'm like, I'm definitely watching these. And I'm getting that acknowledged downloaded for next time I work overnight security. That'll be some good watching. Because it's all about, learning more and expanding your horizons and not making up words like strategery.
Strategery.
Right. But yeah, it's just like all these different things. And, you're talking about how the Masons and the Illuminati separated ways or whatnot. Now, today you talk to Masons and they're like, no, the Illuminati doesn't exist. It never did. Well, of course you're going to say that.
Right. Yeah. And, it turns out my grandpa, we didn't find this out until after he died. There were rumors about it in the family, but me and my sister were a little bit too young to really fully appreciate what being a Mason meant. But I remember my sister asking my mom, wait, is Grandpa a Freemason? And my mom, was very defensive. Like, no, absolutely not. I don't even know what that means. No. But then after he died, and this is kind of the weird part, is somehow, nobody really understands how, my sister ended up with a box full of Freemason jewelry and badges and promotions. As far as we can tell, he made it not quite up to 32 or 33, but he obviously made it up in the upper 29s as far as the ranks, as far as what was left of his materials. And then afterwards, we definitely questioned his. First of all, we don't know how the fuck that box got into my sister's house, all the way from Missouri into Katy. Nobody.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's we have no fucking idea. But then on top of that, his wife, which was, so that would be my step grandma, right? She was pretty, after he died, she was very open about it and was like, yeah, I mean, that's why he would go out of town for a couple of weeks without any explanation. He was out there doing that shit. And then looking back in hindsight, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And so that's kind of shocking to find out. But I don't know. I don't know if the I don't know if the Freemasons are really. They certainly were. Maybe they still are. But I think once it got, somebody explained this really well. I don't remember who it was, but basically, Freemason got to a point a couple of places ago when I was living in Houston rather. I lived right down the street from a Freemason lodge, and it really didn't seem it didn't seem any more significant than an old rundown coffee shop or something. It really, it just didn't. You didn't feel anything from it, right? But from what I've heard, is that once enough people found out what was going on, they decided to go public, which they did. They went public and said, hey, now anybody can join. Just come in and ask, right? But apparently there's two circles to it, which actually Jay Weidner talks about this in relation to the Fulcanelli stuff. But, so there's the outer circle where it's yeah, you can come to these little gatherings, we have some food and, we talk about some stuff, whatever. But then there's the inner circle that the outer circle will never get in. It's almost like a front, I guess you can say, to make it look like, hey, see, we're a friendly thing. Nothing's going on here, when really...
We're just everyday Joes getting together with some snacks.
Exactly. And that way, the people that are in that outer circle, they actually think that's all it is. But those are the uninitiated, I guess you would say. and the will never be initiated, because they're there for that purpose only, to make it look like that's what it is, while they continue to do what they really do, which, from as far as I can tell, is really just preserving alchemical knowledge, ancient alchemical knowledge. I'm not sure if they're as evil as everybody think. I think a lot of people get the actions of the Illuminati and the Freemasons misconstrued. I think, they're getting blamed for each other's actions on multiple occasions, and at least in the last 10 or 15 years. A lot of what people, like 9/11, a lot of people want to say it's all the Masons and blah, blah, blah. Like, pretty sure it's the Illuminati. The Masons don't really, I think there's a lot of misblame going on between.
Yeah, the Masons don't really have energy weapons and such. Like, come on, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But somebody does. That's for damn sure. Yeah, especially. Have you ever talked to Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
No.
Oh, you've got to have him on your show sometime. I can hook you up with him if you want. But
that'd be sweet.
He is one of the most intelligent humans ever. To put in perspective, when he was in high school, back in the 60s, in his own spare time, do you know what I did in my spare time in high school? I skateboarded, right? And I played drums. Well, this guy built his own linear accelerator and displayed particles moving faster than the speed of light. And the Navy found out about that immediately, and right out of high school was recruited into Navy Intel, and that led to a long. He also used to test foreign objects, or to put in more layman's terms, bits of UFOs that had crashed, and they gave it to this guy to examine to figure out what they're made out of. And a lot of the times they were made out of either metals that we don't even know exist or didn't come from that are not natural to the Earth. And in fact, the X-Files, for
unobtainium,
right? And in the first season of the X-Files, they actually hired Dr. Richard Allen Miller as a consultant, because the whole show was based on the program that he was part of over at MRU, in deciphering all these, I guess what you would call X-File cases. And that show was very much based on him and his team and what he was doing. Now, I will give you a heads up. I don't know if you've ever heard him talk. He's a little eccentric, but you gotta love it. He's just one of those guys. You just kind of wind him up and just let him go, and he'll change your day with knowledge bombs all show long.
Yeah, I saw when I went to the UFO conference, there was a video that they played with him on there talking about his experience and how the military came in, basically nabbed him up, and at a point it made me cry because I felt so bad for him, like all these things that he had gone through and missed out on and such because of what they had done. I don't know. It was just kind of a sad story at a certain point of it, but I was just like, I felt so bad for this guy, But all the things that he did experience, I mean, for me, is just mind blowing. But I totally love to talk to him and learn more from him.
Yeah, and I would love to introduce you. You would definitely, you guys would get along. He's one of my favorite people. I love that guy. And but even kind of more sadder is, it's been ongoing for a couple of years now. Somebody has hijacked his whole Amazon, because he's written, probably like 20 books at least. He's got more coming out. And in fact, one of the only folders I have on my desktop, it's a folder called Doc Ram, because he's always sending me, publications and papers and chapters of his upcoming books before they come out. And it's just mind-blowing material. Like this guy is clearly, I mean, it's one thing when you talk to him, but when you actually read his research and his papers, where he's not as eccentric and he's more on track, right? Because obviously it's re-edited and everything. Like, damn, like this dude's brain is obviously operating at a higher level than any of our brains are. But his books from Amazon, They're basically intercepting the sales, and they're making counterfeit copies of the book with no serial numbers, and none of the money goes. All the money from all of the sales are going to whoever's doing this. So basically, somebody has robbed him of all the money that he should have made over the last 2 years over all of his books, and because of that, he's really been struggling lately. And here's the crazy part: is his lawyer. They pretty much had an open and shut case. They checkmated the guy. They figured out who it was. The day before they were going to appear in court, Rick's attorney quite literally disappeared. They know he flew to Mexico, and to this day has never returned, dropped communication. For some reason, he either got paid off or he decided to not be a part of it. After 2 years of investigating, they figured out who it was, and his attorney disappears the day before the court date. And to this day, he's kind of stuck in the same situation. So, folks, if you want to get his books, please go to his actual website and don't order it through Amazon, because he's not getting any money through Amazon. And he's also not the only one having this problem through Amazon.
Well, and Amazon, I've heard a couple stories about people having issues with their books through Amazon and these different things coming up. I think Amazon should be held liable for that. Like, they're the in-between guy, basically. And they even have this thing that says if anything goes wrong, we'll totally, pay for it or fix it for you and whatever. So why are they not fixing this? Why are they allowing this to go on?
Yeah, they... I don't think Amazon is the most holistic of corporations out there. I mean, it's owned by, what's his name, Bezos, who, think about, what's his name, Bezos, what's his first name, Jeff Bezos, something like that. First of all, he owns the Washington Post. Second of all, he just bought out Whole Foods a couple years ago. But he obviously owns Amazon, and there's another big thing he owns too. Like, he's kind of got, like, everything from food to media to products that you order. This guy, if he really wanted to fuck some shit up, what a perfect trifecta of markets to have to really affect society however you want to affect them. And he's kind of a creepy little guy too. If you ever listen to him talk or his interviews, like, there's something off about that guy. And how the fuck did he get that rich in the first place anyway? I guess I could probably look into him more.
Yeah, and that's a scary thought, to have all that power. Like, if things go wrong, he could just be like, nope, you're not eating. I'm holding all these. There's something wrong with it, or whatever his excuse may be. Like, just keeping stuff from you as far as food and all this other things. And what is he going to do with it? Is he going to start using these different, chemicals and genetically altered foods instead of what we're used to eating, which I think they're slowly like putting it into market. A lot of stuff that we eat in other countries is considered trash. Like, we shouldn't even be putting this stuff into our bodies.
Oh yeah, no. There is a huge problem with the food that we eat every day. I mean, I'll admit, I had In-N-Out Burger earlier today. So obviously, I'm not perfect, but but usually I try to eat. First of all, usually I'm basically do kind of a keto diet, and no bread or pasta or anything like that, just kind of meat and vegetables. And even then, I try to get like organic stuff, but even then, you can't even really, even if it says organic on it, like, how do you really even know? Because there's a lot of people pointing out like. Because there's a lot of products you'll notice that says all natural, but it doesn't say organic. Like, doesn't organic basically mean all natural? So what's the difference here? Like, what are you trying to pull here? And then, if you think about, Bezos, for example, let's say any one of his companies, whether it's this whole book controversy in Amazon, or let's say somebody finds out, which they have discovered, that some of the foods that are supposed to be organic or not organic, some of the foods that are not supposed to have used pesticides have been used pesticides. Well, as soon as they come out with it, well, guess what? He owns the Washington Post, one of the most prestigious newspapers out there, and well, now it's a website mostly, I guess. But so all he has to do is tell someone to write and make up an excuse and cover it up, and it's a mainstream article in Washington Post. Bam, he's got all bases covered. There's basically nothing stopping him from and obviously it's probably not him. He's probably working for whether it's the cabal or whoever else. I'm sure he's you don't become a multi-billionaire without playing ball. You know what I mean? Like, you don't.
Yeah.
They will not let you, whether it's the IRS or whatever. Like, they will, if you're not playing ball and you're not contributing to this, global agenda, whether you want to call it the New World Order agenda or whether you want to call it whatever. There's multiple agendas out there. The cabal, he's up for bat for somebody. And and that's just one example of somebody who's got all bases covered. And yeah, I mean, that's something you really got to think about. And but one thing I do notice that I'm kind of proud of when it comes to our industry with shows like yours and mine and other shows on our networks is, when it comes to TalkStream Live, whenever you guys are on, whenever we're on, and TalkStream Live is one of the major, podcast / radio platforms out there. And every time our shows are on, I mean, we're right there, like top 4, 5, or 6, and Fox News is straggling behind at like 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
And that just goes and then even Alex Jones, he's back there at like 8 or 9. And but when Spaced Out Radio comes on, and when our show comes on, Lighting the Void, even the Quantum, most shows of my friends' shows, they do way better in the ratings than even Fox News, and I think that's a very good sign. And it's not by a small amount either. There is a lot more people listening to Spaced Out Radio than there is listening to Fox News, for example, or even Alex Jones.
That's pretty mind-blowing, but awesome, because people are wanting to learn these different things that aren't mainstream news, and they want to know the truth about certain things and educate themselves on it, and that's pretty awesome. I'm glad you shared that, because I had no clue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting if you look at the ratings. And by the way, Queen, yeah, she's saying she loves... Yeah, Reverend John Polk, one of my favorite people ever. And, yeah, his show is awesome. And but you know what, Queen? Me and John were the guests on another show the other day that just came out. And if you like Quantum Hologram Matrix, you would love this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and share that link right now. And, yeah, definitely check that out. It's a brand new show. It's hosted by Jeff Rennell, and it's video also. It's a YouTube show. It's very well produced, and I can be honest when I say he put a lot more production effort into this show than I've ever put into anything. So very well done, and there's a link right there. Yeah, great conversation. Definitely check that out. And speaking of which, Tessa, that's another person we got to get on your show sometime, is Reverend John Polk. Are you familiar with him or any of his books?
Yeah, I've heard of him. I haven't got to. Man, things have been so crazy with life and raising kids and trying to keep up with everything. But I've heard good things and different things from my friends about him. And I'm pulling it up right now because I do want to hear more from him. But definitely somebody I want to check out.
Yeah, no, he's great, and he's definitely available to come on your show. Especially, his first book, which is called Yahweh the Biblical God is an Alien, is obviously just full of just rich information about exactly what you think that book would be about based on the title, right? But then his second book is called The Blue Beings, and I forget the subtitle, but it's basically called The Blue Beings, and it's about a There's 20 plus witnesses. I've talked to multiple of them myself. There were blue beings that made an appearance at a small little conference, and I mean, it sounds kind of like when I explain it like that, it sounds kind of far-fetched, but when you hear everybody's side of the story, it all corroborates, and there's some really, and then it comes to the part where, they were trying to figure out how to, like, they didn't understand what money was, right? So, like, they had somehow gotten some money, and they were trying to get into the conference. Like, first of all, they were kind of off-put because their skin was kind of blue. Like, obviously they probably thought, maybe, just like Comic-Con, people sometimes they dress up and put on some makeup or whatever and look a little snazzy, right? But then these people, like, just imagine somebody, the way they tried to get. First of all, they didn't know the amount of money that was worth anything. They had no concept whatsoever of what money really meant. They just knew that you needed it for something, and they held it out to them in the palm of their hand, like as if you were presenting a pristine chicken egg or something, like
Right.
like that kind of, like, they're just like holding this pile of money out in their hand, and the guy's just looking at him like, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know. Can we get in? Like, the whole interaction was so, it's a very fascinating story. And, hey, Queen, do you want a copy of his book? I've got like 10 of them. I'll send you one. Okay. I know you already emailed me your address before. Just, email it to me again, gg@shifthappenspodcast.com. I'll send you a copy of that. But yeah, very good book. In fact, he was the very first guest we ever had on this show a couple of years ago. And
Nice.
Yeah, good guy. He's always got a lot to say. And plus, he's got that radio voice. You know what I mean? He just sounds good. So there you go. Man, I was really looking forward to Dennis calling in. I'll try to message him. But,
I messaged him on Facebook. I'm like, hey, the number's up, call in.
Okay.
But yeah, sign me up for one of those books too. I'd love to take a look at it.
All right, cool. Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely send you one. And what time is the show over? We were planning on ending it in 3 minutes, but I mean, I don't have anything else to do. I don't know if you got anything else going on, or if you need to go. But one thing I did notice is I didn't know that, because we do after parties for our main shows, right? Typically we do, first 2 callers to call in, they get to hang out with us for a little bit after the show, right? But you do that too. So I didn't know anybody else did that. How long have you been doing those after parties?
Oh, probably a couple months now. I started doing the SOR Asylum after party, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like the other night you were in there was quite a few people in there, and we just have a good time hanging out and talking about whatever pops up, and having drinks together. You and I were shooting shots there, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. I always do, and I always stay up way too late. I'm generally up till like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes my husband comes in and gives me the nod of shame. But I really do enjoy it, just hanging out. It's like the show is never long enough, so I just want to keep it going and keep hanging out and talking with people and sharing our different perspectives. And yeah, I never thought of it as like something different that nobody else does, but I mean, to me it sounded like fun, and so I just decided to do it one day.
Yeah, well, shit, that's before we started doing it, so I guess that's your claim to fame, really, because nobody else does it as far as I know. So I love that shit too, and that's why I do these B-side shows too, is because I mean, for one, I love the French FM. They've done so much for me, and can't thank them enough. But halfway, about a year ago, they went family friendly. It's like, well, fuck, that kind of, that was our initial point of our show, was you can say whatever you want as long as we're talking about real shit, right? Mm-hmm. But we can't even do that anymore. So that's why I like doing these B-side shows, and not only that, but also the after parties, so that we can really get down and dirty and really say what we want to say. And plus, I mean, there's other reasons too. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. And so, hold on now. So, you have 4 kids and you're married. How the hell do you have time to do this? What do you? How old are your kids?
I have, let's see, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old. We actually received guardianship of our nephew, so 2 14-year-olds, my daughter and my nephew. And then I have a 19-year-old who promptly moved out at the age of 18.
Wait, so that's 5 basically, right?
Yeah, 5 now. Starting, well, this last Easter is when we brought him into our fold. So it's been interesting. We're having some stuff going on with school and such and whatnot. You know, it's when kids have a hard time with their original families, it's kind of hard to get into the flow with other families. But yeah, it's a blessing for sure to have them. But yeah, I have caught flack from my 14-year-old. You know, you don't even get paid for this, and why do you do this? And I'm like, because I love it. Do you get paid for hanging out with your friends? I don't think so. But yeah, I really do love doing it. It as soon as I started doing the security job, it was kind of difficult doing the whole booking jobs and everything, but everything just seems to be flowing the way it should and working out great. And I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, first of all, I've got to point out, I mean, 3-year-old, that's quite a phase right there. 6-year-old, that's a whole nother, they're kind of waking up and figuring shit out phase right there. And then 2 14-year-olds, that's a real struggleless phase. Is that a word? Struggleless? Struggleful phase for kids to go through. And you're dealing with that all of one. I mean, that's a pretty, goddamn, props to you for being able to handle all that. That's amazing. And yeah, for me, it's really not about the money. And honestly, we probably, you know, I'm obviously not making a whole living doing this. But if you're not making any money yet already, I think you definitely will. Just keep on going. You know, I swear to God, Kitty, you cannot be up here. Please, get down, dude.
Miss Kitty, the producer.
Yeah, she keeps trying to get up here. She just knocked over my pipe. But,
how dare she?
Yeah, seriously, come on, man. Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, because you're, you know, you're a good personality, and you've got a lot of knowledge, especially for someone that's only been doing this for not even a year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep on doing this, and opportunities will come. And but I really would recommend, not that I'm some sort of you know, guru or anything, but definitely go to as many conferences as you can. That's probably the most that's what's really going to you know, that's kind of the main thing you want to do. That's where all the networking's done. And you know, because you can email people all you want, right? But you know, most of the times you don't. I'm sure you know, like most of the time you're not going to get a response. They don't care. They don't know who you are. But if you hang out with them and have a good time and you crack some jokes at the end of a conference, like, oh yeah, I remember that guy. Fuck yeah, I'll do your show. You know what I mean? And that's a really big part of this whole thing. And yeah, I know you mentioned you're doing that show with the lead Skolden guy on the 23rd, which would be, that would be a Saturday, I guess, right?
Yeah, I believe that's the weekend of the conference you were talking about. Like,
yeah,
man.
Damn. Well, because I mean, we were gonna do. We were planning on doing a show live from the event, but we have to. Well, because they only have a couple of Ethernet ports, which it's a little bit of a scheduling issue. But I guess what I was going to say is, if we can get our show set up and we end up doing it that weekend, if you wanted to come, if we worked that out, and if you wanted to come out, you could just use our setup and make it work from there. And that way you could have your show and come to the conference at the same time, which I know it sounds like a lot of work, but I've done that. We've done live shows from conferences many times. It's very possible.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit hard because at Conscious Life at the Hilton LAX, there's just cell phone reception just doesn't work in about half of the building. I don't know what, like, if you're in the bar or the lounge area, you're fine. But once you get into the actual lecture rooms, downstairs or even upstairs in the vendor areas, nobody's phone works, and it's really frustrating because we're all there and we're all trying to text each other like, hey, where you at? But nobody's getting anybody's text. So that's kind of a tricky situation. But there is one room that does have an Ethernet plug-in that we could use if they let us, and we're kind of going to figure that out. So I'll let you know if that turns out. But I think you really should go if you can, if it's possible, if it makes sense. It's pretty much the best conference other than CITD, obviously.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I will definitely try to work that out because that'd be epic, and I'd love to do that, and that would be my first time airing from a conference. But yeah, like you said, just meeting people and getting to know them, and I've been surprised at how many amazing emails that I've received back and guests that I've had on, but then the majority of it, like you were saying, they're just like, well, who's this person, and they just totally swipe to the next email.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And although I think you've got probably a little bit better chances because you're associated with Spaced Out Radio, and most I would say pretty much everybody in this industry knows that radio show. So as long as you put Spaced Out Radio in the subject part of the email, you kind of got an in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man. So do you? So what is the schedule these days? So it's basically Dave from Monday through Thursday, and then it's you on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Is that basically it?
No, I do Saturday and Sunday. Dave does the weekdays. So yeah, that's how we've done it. And anytime he needs me to cover for him, which has happened a couple times, I do that. But generally, I'm the weekend girl, and he's the weekday guy.
Right on. Yeah, because a couple of friends of mine also used to do the, Joe used to do Saturdays, and then before him, Dave was doing it for a while. And yeah, cool show. And definitely give Dave, Dave my best of regards because, like I told you the other night, I'm not going to go into it right now, but I totally owe him one. I was a real douchebag a long time ago for some drunken reason, and I don't even I have, it's the kind of thing where even if I apologize to him, there's no reason for him to even accept the apology. It was that bad. So, but I do apologize, and I think he's awesome. I love his program, and I think he would be surprised at how much I do listen to it. Although usually, to be honest, I don't, on the weekends, I'm usually pretty, busy, not listening to radio stuff, but I do listen during the weekdays. And that's kind of why I was, interested in you, because I didn't realize that you took up the whole, weekend throne. And I was like, how come I didn't know about that? And so, yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to have you on here too. But yeah, do give him my best regards. Give him a little nux for me, and tell him to keep on keeping on.
Oh, I definitely will.
And he'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I say I owe him one. So there you go. Man, so okay, and do you know a guy named Cliff High, or do you know that name?
I'm so bad with names. Like, I'm great with faces, but no, not ringing a bell.
Yeah, honestly, I don't blame you because I didn't know about him either until about 2 weeks ago. But man, that's another guy to look up. I don't know what his halfpasthumans.com. Anyway, that's one of the more interesting. I mean, that's kind of what we did all morning today was watch all of his videos and everything he's talking about right now. And anybody listening, Cliff High. It's Cliff with one F and High. And in fact, and it's crazy because he's got a huge following, and it's like he's connecting all kinds of dots about everything that's kind of how do I want to say this lightly? What's going on in this industry, and a lot of the, I don't want to call it drama, but I'm sure
There's a lot.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, just like anything else, like even in the skateboarding industry, you would think like, right, we're all skateboarding. What could be a problem here? But there's politics there too. There's politics here too, and but yeah, he's connecting a lot of dots that nobody's connecting. He's his brain is obviously, he's one of those people where his brain is just optimally tuned, and he's just spitting out some real knowledge all the time. And he's actually coming on our show. We're still trying to work out the dates because he's quite a busy man, but he's going to be on the show pretty soon. I'm actually very much really excited about that. I mean, we've had some big guests on here, but man, I'm excited about that. Yeah, look up Cliff High, and very interesting stuff. I might even be able to pull up a link here, but
yeah, I've been taking notes over here. I'm like, oh man, I got to check this person out. and the websites as well, and yeah, just constantly looking into that stuff. Different portals.
Yeah, let's see. What's that guy's name? Yeah, he just did a show like a couple of days ago. And the host had a really weird name. I can't remember what it was. Oh, here it is. What's his name? Well, it doesn't say his name still, but here's the link right here. This is what we were tripping out about all morning. Earlier today, me and my co-host Darren, and I'm going to put that in the chat. Bing, bam, boom.
Whoop.
There you go. Yeah, definitely check that out too. And so yeah, there you go. And yeah, I don't know. Do you, who? So when it comes to, because obviously when it comes to being a host of a radio show. Dan James just says you can throw out a show at any time, Gigi. Worst case scenario, you'll pick up the Australians, and that's right. And welcome, Dan. Dan James is one of my favorite. Every episode where he can make it, he's whatever we're talking about. Somehow he knows more about it than we do, and he'll drop a bunch of links and quotes and stuff. Like, he's just a genius. So. Yeah, definitely, definitely look up. Oh, and he's warning me. Oh, okay. I thought you were saying it was about to be 3 hours. Yeah, we do need to do 3 hours. In fact, the Fringe FM has. We could do 3 hours if we wanted, but I don't know. How do you feel about that, Tessa? If it were up to you? Would you rather do a 2-hour show or a 3-hour show? If it were totally up to you.
I would prefer to do the 3-hour show because even doing 3 hours, it never seems like enough time to get into everything we want to talk about. So definitely the 3-hour show. Right
on. Yeah, I mean, it really, there's definitely, like, for example, when Richard Allen Miller comes on, 2 hours is not near, especially, you got your commercial breaks and everything, which when you cut all that out, it's basically only an hour and a half show, right? And with some people, it's just not enough time. But then every once in a while, you kind of get another guest where, you kind of you run out of shit to talk about before even 2 hours is up.
Yeah, you kind of peter out.
Yeah,
How about them Patriots? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, how about the Astros, right? Yeah, and that's nobody's fault. It's just that's just how it is. But yeah, we could, good point, Dan. We could start doing 3-hour shows. I know we have an extra hour open on the network, but I don't know. I kind of like doing these B-side shows though. So maybe I'll just save that extra time and do that for these. Like, for example, we've gone past 2 hours. Would not have been possible on the Fringe FM. I would have had to cut you off mid-sentence 15 minutes ago.
Right.
If we were on the network. So there you have it. Oh, man. Hold on one second.
Yeah, where's this Dan guy anyways? I'm looking in the chat room. I'm like, I don't see him.
Yeah. Oh, no, he just messaged me. He's not actually in the chat room. Yeah, so... but yeah, Dan is definitely OG status for sure. Now, let's see. Yeah, by the way, Queen, if you're... Yeah, don't forget to send me your email address. I'll send you that book. And there you go. And then... yeah, also, Tessa, if you want to copy that book, I'll send... Yeah, just let me know where to send it. And I'll send that to you. And
Sweet. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely... like I said before, it seems like it's kind of out there, but... just from reading the book, but once you get into... I've actually been on multiple shows with some of the other witnesses, one of which is Travis Walton. But here's what's interesting. I'm sure you know who Travis Walton is, right?
Yeah.
So Travis Walton actually refuses to talk about it. Like, he was there, he saw it, he won't talk about it. I've tried to interview him twice about it, once in person, actually. And how it went was it was like, hey, are you down to do an interview for, at the time I was with Beyond the Strange? And he was like, yeah, sure. Like, what do you want to talk about? I was like, well, honestly, I want to talk about the blue beings. He's like, oh, sorry, dude, no. So, like, okay. That just kind of adds a little extra cheese to the sauce, if you ask me. But is that even a term either? I'm coming up with some random ass terms tonight. I don't
You
know
better copyright these.
Yeah, I need to. Yeah. You know what's funny is somebody actually tried to. They thought they were going to sue us over a hashtag, a Twitter hashtag that we were using. Because our show is called Shift Happens, and so we were using the hashtag ShiftHeads, right? And then
Yeah.
And then, like, I mean, I did notice, like, once every couple of months there would be one random person using the hashtag talking about something else, but it was very rare. And then all of a sudden I get all these emails and letters like, hey, we're taking you to court. Well, first of all, why don't you just call me first and say, hey, what's up? Can you stop using it? Do you really have to come swinging off the bat with a lawsuit? And then second of all, I don't know if you know anything about how the world works, but you can't sue somebody for a hashtag. That's just not how the law works. And but they just gave us so much shit that we just stopped using it. And of course, they're not using it either. So...
Yeah, what was the point in that?
I really don't know. I think I really don't know. I've really thought about it. Like, what is the point? What was the point from their side? Doesn't make sense. But yeah, we've been talking about this, and we're gonna start implementing that again this coming week, and we'll just see what happens. Obviously, I'm not worried about the lawsuit. I just don't feel, I get enough email and hate mail and everything as it is. But which actually, all right, I'm going to clear this up right now. I don't mean to take up your time, Tessa, but
Oh, no worries.
I am going to say this real quick. So apparently I started a huge controversy on Twitter because I said the following. So the band Queen, obviously, Queen,
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody, all that stuff. So they've been touring around with this guy, Adam Lambert. And, that's fine. But here's the problem. They're still calling it Queen. And so all I said was, I'm going to paraphrase. Basically what I said was, it's like, yeah, the performances are great. You guys are killing it, but you can't call it Queen. You have to call it something like, for example, when Caius, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but when Caius, they were early 90s desert rock, and then, basically a couple of the original members wanted to come out and basically just make a money grab and just play tours of a bunch of old songs that were written 20 years ago, right? And they were trying to call it Caius, but the other two guys, Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age and Nick Oliveri, they were like, dude, no, you can't, like, yeah, go ahead and do it, but you're not going to call it Caius. And they threatened, it was so, because the point is, there's a legacy that you left under that name. And Freddie Mercury was very much a part, probably the biggest part of Queen. I don't think anybody would dispute that. So now you're going to replace him with some other guy and you're going to call it Queen? Like in my, because I'm a musician as well. I've been playing in bands for years, and I know exactly how I would feel if I died and they replaced me with somebody else and they still called it the same. Like, that's not, for example, that's like saying if you have macaroni and cheese, right, which consists of macaroni and cheese, all right, we'll call it macaroni and cheese. But if you replace the cheese with pesto, but you're still calling it macaroni and cheese, what are you doing? It's not the same thing. You can't call it that. It's not the same thing. And I think it's very...
Blasphemy.
It really is. And I think it's really disrespectful to the original... just leave the legacy alone and move on with your lives. Go ahead and play the songs, but call it, like Caius. They ended up calling it Caius Lives to make a clear separation that this is a different chapter, rather than saying, that this is the same thing, because it's not. Freddie Mercury is quite irreplaceable. I mean,
yes,
it's pretty preposterous that anybody would even try to do that. Although, honestly, the Adam Lambert guy, I mean, he's good. It's good. I'm not going to lie. It's good. But don't call it Queen. And then the other part of the controversy was, well, it's not called Queen. It's called Queen plus Adam Lambert. Well, first of all, it's still called Queen. And then second of all, when I looked up tickets for my area, it didn't mention Adam Lambert. It just said Queen, as if it was Queen. Like, you can't replace... Do you see what I'm saying? Like, does anybody see what I'm saying here? Like, because most of the people on Twitter...
I'm totally picking up what you're putting down.
Like, most people argued with me, and first of all, I would imagine none of them are musicians, first of all. Second of all, I just think, once you create a legacy, and if somebody dies or it ends or whatever, like, that's it. That's what it was. Leave it at that. If you want to take some material from it, sure, go ahead. But have the decency to call it something else, rather than pissing on the legacy of what you... Even if it's not pissing, maybe you're pouring a very fine wine on top of the legacy. Whatever it is, you're changing it. It's not the same thing. Call it something else, okay? So that's for all of you folks out there on Twitter that have been arguing with me for 5 fucking days about this. That's my fucking point. It's not about the performance, it's just the fucking name. Change the fucking name. Sorry, I had to get that out. I just had to say it.
Yeah, it's really not hard for me to see, but, some people just gotta bitch about something as far as, well, why won't you leave it like that? Like you said, it's his legacy, and you can't, he's irreplaceable, really.
He really is, man. And, by the way, did you see the movie? Did you see the Bohemian Rhapsody movie?
No, I requested to see that for my birthday, and we're like, we'll do it next week. We'll do it next week. If it's not playing here, it'll be playing in Farmington. I never got to see it, and I wanted to see it on the big screen in the recliner with the surround sound and all the awesomeness, but it
Well,
looks like I'll be watching it at home.
Actually, I just looked earlier today. There's still a couple theaters around me that are still playing it, which is crazy because it's been out for like 2 months. No movies last that long. But there are some
I'll have
theaters
to look
still playing.
online.
Yeah, and also shame on, well, I can imagine who it was that told you that he would take you there. But yeah, shame on him for not taking you. What a great fucking movie. You really do have to see it. And the most amazing part is, it's, you have to see it to understand what I'm talking about. So I'll just skip that. But it was a really good movie. And it really, like I'm going to be honest, I teared up at a couple of points in that movie. I mean, it was so well done. The actors were perfect. Not only were the actors, but they were also musicians. And the whole, I'm not sure if you're, not to spoil the movie, but I'll just say there is a part in the movie where they show the whole, they recreate the AIDS benefit concert that they did, which was right. And I mean, they recreated it perfectly. The guy that played Freddy, they gave him some dentures, made his teeth look fucked up like Freddy's was. I mean, they made everything just right, and all of those actors were actually playing. What you're hearing in the movie was the actual performance that they did. And here's the crazy part: is that was the first scene. That was the first day of shooting, which is in the movie. It's the last thing that you see. But the crazy part is, that was the first thing they had these guys do. Like, especially the drummer. God bless that guy. He had to really learn some difficult shit there. And but man, like, and if you compare the pictures between Freddy and forgive me, I don't remember the actor's name who plays Freddy. But if you compare the two pictures from the same concert while they're making the same pose, you can't fucking tell the difference. I mean, usually I say fuck Hollywood, but in this case, I got to say, way to go, Hollywood. You guys really pulled something off here. I mean, that was a really special movie. And I think anybody that has any musical taste should definitely see that movie. And like I said, I think it is still in theaters out here. I don't know about. By the way, where are you based out of again?
I'm in the Four Corners area, so I live in Bayfield, which is a bedroom community to Durango, Colorado. So we're right there on the line of New Mexico, and so I'm looking right now to see if perhaps one of the theaters down there is still playing it. Because not only did I want to see it, I wanted to take my kids to see it. Like, my 3-year-old runs around singing Queen. She's like, "Mama just killed a man," and I'm like, "Hell yeah, that's my kid."
I would be so proud of my kid if they were singing that. Well, I mean, I don't have a kid, but if I did and they sang that, I would be so proud. Yeah. You know what? One of the coolest things I've ever seen was, once again, I just saw it the other day. 25 years. I mean, this happened back in right after Freddie died. I don't know if you remember, but they did they had a huge tribute concert to him, and by huge, I mean it was massive. There must have been at least 20 or 30,000 people in the audience, and so right after he died, it was a tribute concert, and it must have been at least a couple hours long. And for each and every song, they had a different cameo appearance for the singer, and everyone was relative at the time was a popular musician or celebrity at the time, right? But the best part of the whole thing, and if you look it up, just look up when they played Bohemian Rhapsody with Elton John and Axl Rose. Man, it once again, that brought a tear to my eye. First of all, when I first saw it, especially but just because at first it seems like it's just Elton John, but an obvious point of the song, Axl Rose just makes a random explosive appearance out on the stage, and then him and Elton John finish it off together, and it was just such a beautiful performance. And see, once again, not to bring up the whole controversy from earlier, now that is completely acceptable because that was a tribute concert. That wasn't Queen. That was the whole music industry coming together to put together a concert. Now that is not only acceptable, that was probably one of the coolest fucking things I've ever seen. And
yeah, it gives you goosebumps.
It really does. I mean, it was such a... You can... Just imagine... I mean, you can feel the vibe just from watching the video on YouTube. But just imagine actually being in the audience, not knowing who was about to come on stage, and then all of a sudden, you know, right after the Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, let me go, and then blah, 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 and then it comes in, bum, 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 bam, fireworks go off, and then Axl Rose pops up on stage. How fucking... And this was like in 93 or 94 or something. How fucking hyped would you fucking be if you were in the audience and you look at... And you can see the audience the whole time. There is not a single soul... Hey, what's up, Daryl? There is not a single soul in that audience that is not jumping up and down with all of their fucking energy. Just what a powerful, powerful performance. I just think that was one of the coolest things that's ever happened. And so if you've never seen that, definitely watch that after this. Specifically the Bohemian Rhapsody song with Elton John and Axl Rose. That was just fucking fantastic. Man, I wish I could shake their hands. But
yeah, I'm gonna have to show my 3-year-old. She loves it.
Yeah, man. And yeah, it's funny. Every time, you know, there's a little saloon just right across the street here. And I don't go there too often. I probably go there a couple times a month. But every time I go there, I swear to God, Reverend John Polk was with me on one of these times. He was staying out here for a little bit. And we went out there. Every time I'll put on Bohemian Rhapsody on the jukebox, every single person stops what they're doing, and everybody in the whole bar sings along to the whole fucking song. It's like, it's just this beautiful experience that you can just summon. You can pretty much go to any bar anywhere. Maybe not in Compton or something, but pretty much anywhere else. You can play that song in a bar, and every single person is going to put their drink down and start singing. I mean, that's just one of those songs. I just love that shit. And yeah, I'm almost ashamed that I never saw that tribute show. I didn't even know about it until like a few days ago. I'm like, wow. And I call myself a musician. How dare I not know about this? This is preposterous.
Hey, well, at least you found it, you know, before you kicked the bucket.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of kick the bucket, well, maybe I'll ask you that after the show. Hold on. Okay, so actually, so Daryl, hey, if you want to come and hang out for a little bit, we're gonna hang out for just a little bit longer. So feel free to call in. I'll put in the call number. Well, you could probably just Skype me anyway. But if you just want to call in, the number is 928-485-4856. Put it in the chat room. There you go. Again, that's 928-485-4856. Or as other radio hosts would say, 928-485-4856. All right, let's go.
Yeah, you got that, right?
Like, seriously, man, give the audience a chance. But yeah, so what else is going on, Tessa? Anything on your mind? Anything you want to get off your chest?
Well, what are your thoughts on this whole Mandela effect? I had a guest on last week, and my 19-year-old, when she was younger, actually brought it to my attention, and I'm like, what? And then more and more things keep coming out about it, and then this lady last week is sharing with me, like, not only are these, you know, mainstream things happening like Fruit Loops and Bernstein Bears, all this other stuff, but people are saying they used to have kids and now they don't, and people that didn't have kids now have kids, like different random stuff like that happening. Like, what are your thoughts on the whole Mandela effect, and have you heard anything like that as far as like families changing? Because that was the first time I'd heard anything about it.
Oh, no, I can definitely... I've got some real Mandela experiences here. One of which is one of the more popular ones, which is has to do with the movie Kazam, which for some reason they decided Shaquille O'Neal should be the star of that. I'm not sure who made that call, but they did, and and so that movie happened, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
I remember it when it wasn't Shaquille.
Well, and that's the thing. Not only was it not Shaquille, but it also wasn't Kazam. It was most
Shazam.
people Shazam, right? So now here's the thing. Because one of my friends, he's not even... He is very loose. He might listen to my show once a month, maybe. You know, like, he's not really... He doesn't have time to get into this shit, right? He's got, like, 1,700 kids and 17 jobs, you know, so he doesn't have time for this shit. But, you know, one of the last times I was hanging out with him, well, I mean, it was a few times ago, a couple years ago, he was like, hey, do you remember that movie Shazam? And I was like, oh, yeah, you mean the one with Sinbad? And he was like, yeah, exactly. But guess what? There is no Shazam movie, and Sinbad never played a genie. There's a movie called Kazam, and Shaq played in it. And I was like... I literally thought he was fucking with me. I'm like, why are you even trying to fuck with me about this? Like, you would usually fuck with me about something much more important than this. Like, what's going on here? And then, but he pulled it up, and sure enough, I'm like it really, it kind of troubled me for a second, because I had to really question my memory of reality. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and he's showing me on his phone. I'm like, okay, hold on. Maybe he's pulling up some bullshit. Let me check my phone. And sure enough, yeah, that movie never existed. And so then after that point, I tested this on 4 of my other friends. And every single time the exact same happened. And here is how I came up to them about it. I said, hey, do you remember that movie Shazam? And like, yeah. And then I'd be like, who was the guy that played in that movie? And every single one of them said, oh, Sinbad. And I'm like,
yeah.
See? That's my point. So this has... more people than not remember Sinbad being in Shazam, which doesn't exist, when it's actually... There is a movie called Kazam with Shaq, which... Yeah, sure. All right, caller. One second, caller. We've got you in here, but just hold on 1 second. So we've got, obviously, the names are similar. They're both black people. I get it, but this is way more specific than that. When you ask somebody who starred in a movie that doesn't exist, and they all answer you with Sinbad, which, once again, the movie never even exists. Like, there's obviously some sort of global memory fault going on here, and I have heard a lot of good theories about this. One of which is, well, first of all, hold on. I'm going to get into this, but hold on. Caller, who is this?
Oh, it's Daryl.
Oh, hey, what's up, Daryl?
Hey, Daryl.
Hey, yeah,
So
Daryl.
what's your theory on, I think it's time travel that screws up the timelines.
Well, I think...
creates the Mandela effect.
My idea is pretty close. Not exactly time travel, but multiple dimension, alternate universe, alternate dimension travel is what I would call it. Shit, we got another caller too. All right, hold on. Let's bring this person in. All right, second caller. Who art thou?
I would be Dennis.
I would have bet $1 million it was you. All right, but
Hey, Dennis.
all right, but let me finish my point here. So, now here's the thing. Nobody really knows. No scientist, no quantum physicist. Nobody knows exactly, or even close to exactly, what really happens when we go to sleep. Where does our consciousness go? Nobody really knows, right? So here's my idea, and this is not based. This is my own idea. I don't, I don't accredit this to anybody else. I didn't borrow this from anybody else. Nobody else has this exact same. Maybe they do. I've never heard it. But here's my idea. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so here's the deal. I have a feeling that when you go to sleep, now this is assuming that we have an uncountable amount of alternate realities, right? Where in one reality you put on a blue shirt instead of a red shirt, right? Or in the other reality you drink a Pepsi instead of a Coke. But more or less it's kind of the same reality, right? And according to, a lot of quantum theorists and all of that, this is very much supposed to be the case, right? So here's the problem is, where is the bridge between these realities? How are people getting from one to the other? Well, here's what I think is going on, is when you go to sleep, based on your expectations, based on your beliefs, when you go to sleep with that set of beliefs, you are going to wake back up. The next time you wake up, you're going to wake up in one of the alternate realities that most closely assimilates what your beliefs were when you went to sleep. And that is how you are jumping from these different alternative reality timelines. So, for example, let's say you had one day where, I don't know, maybe you told your boss to fuck off or something, right? And in one reality, you think he's going to fire you over it. Or, well, let's say in one instance, let's say you think he's going to fire you over it. And you went to sleep with that belief. And then you woke up the next day, and guess what? You're fired. Well, okay. Yeah. But let's say, go back to the same moment before. And let's say that you decided to believe, he probably thought it was funny, he won't fire me. And you go to sleep with that belief. You're going to wake up the next day with that reality where he doesn't fire you. Does that make sense to everybody here?
I really don't mean to interrupt, Sir Gigi. This is about reality creation. And they call me Dream Master. And, this is setting intention. Set intention. And, and the way I dream, lucid dream, whatever you want to call it like that, you process and work out in a conscious manner in your dream time. And so what I do is I process, some people call it meditation, before I go to sleep, process all the daily events so I don't bring them in to my dream time, because I need space. Like I need, I don't want my subcon interrupting, with my full consciousness, right? My unconscious, right? My
right.
Where I connect for myself. I connect to the outer dimension, higher dimension. Right? And I can see these things play out, like you were just saying, sir. See, you wake up in the morning, and you can play out whatever it's your intention. Sorry, I'll be quiet, sir.
Yeah. Are you dreaming with your subconscious or your unconscious?
I think it's your whole conscious, really. Yeah,
it's experiment. You got to discern what it is. If you can lucid dream, like if you can remember your dreams, or wake up. Remembering your dreams, you got to discern if it's coming from the subcon, or if it's coming from universe. If because subconscious really, really gets involved, right? In your dreams. That's where everything gets sorted out, because we have no time in wake time. You want to call it that? So we process at night. So what I do is I process during the day. So when I go to sleep, I don't have to process this shit. So it frees up my mind, my unconscious to come in, right? Because my subcon is already dealt with. Sorry, it's just.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up, because that makes me want to clarify that, to kind of explain more fully what I mean by my idea is, or I guess you can call it a theory, right? Is so when you go to sleep, your consciousness leaves your body and it goes somewhere else. And I think the determining factor. So now, let's say, now your consciousness is out there in the middle of space. And there's
travel, out of body experience, OBEs, whatever.
Well, kind of like that, right? And so once your consciousness is out of your body and you're asleep and you're dreaming, there are multiple versions of yourself, an infinite number of versions of yourself, and multiple alternate, very similar but slightly different realities. And whichever one of those realities most closely assimilates to what you think is going to happen, that's the body that your consciousness goes into to wake up in, which is not necessarily the one it left the night before, if that makes any sense. And I think that's what the Mandela effect is. I think this has happened on a mass level, and a lot of us were in, I think, for example, all of us that remember, if you asked me who was in Shazam and I said Sinbad, well, there's like millions of people that think the same thing. So according to this idea, we all went to sleep one day with that idea, but then our consciousness went out, and then we came back in the same alternate reality. And there's certain, I don't know why this. There's better examples than this movie. There's obviously the actual
what's your idea
Mandela
on multiverse.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
But what if, question? What if in another universe you did not tell your boss to fuck off? You held your tongue.
Wait, hold on. Can you say that again, Daryl? Hold on, Daryl. Can you say that again? I didn't quite hear you.
I'm saying in a different multiverse, the same time, same day, same shirt, same Pepsi, but you held your tongue and you did not say fuck off to your boss in a different universe. How would that affect, that dreamer? Or who's in, I don't know, who's dominating? What dominates?
That's what I'm saying, is it's your own consciousness that's dominating it. It depends on, it's your belief and your intent that decides which reality your consciousness is going to be a part of. So if, for example, let's say World War III was about to, let's say it started, right? Or it was about to start. Let's say it was about to start, right? So there's two different scenarios. One scenario, you actually believe it's going to start. So when you go to sleep, your consciousness goes up, and it reintegrates into the specific alternate reality that World War III does start in, right? But let's go back to before you went to sleep. If you went to sleep not believing that World War III was going to happen, you would wake up in a reality where it doesn't happen. Does that make sense?
Let's all concentrate that we all go to sleep with that in mind. With that being said.
Well, yeah, again, and for some reason, apparently there's...
ask me a question, and, I'll give you a sharing, but I'm not going to explain this shit, all right? It's pretty simple shit. Sorry.
No.
Well, just explain it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ask me a question. Fuck.
No, you explain it. I want to hear it.
Reality creation? You don't even have to go to sleep, man. You can do this, in your waking state. Every decision that you make in your life, all right, will change your reality, of course. Right? You can pick and choose. And then when you go to sleep, all right, then you pick and choose what those realities might be, like you were mentioning, Gigi. And so when you wake up, you come up with decisions. How are you going to act? How are you going to react to certain situations that may come up that next day? Reality creation. All right? Simple stuff. Some of you call it the golden rule or something, or
the golden ratio,
manifestation of life or something. Whatever the fuck they call that shit. It's just,
that's why I love Dennis right there.
It's the reality.
Right?
We manifest.
Okay, I guess it is.
I don't even think you have to, make actions. The mind is such a powerful thing Just having
Right.
certain thoughts can create things. You don't even
Tension.
have to take
All
an
the
action. You
intention.
just, yeah.
But Gigi's trying to link that the Mandela effect has something to do with our dreaming.
No,
That we all collectively dreamt something.
no.
And when we-
You know what?
I don't-
When
I
I think
I
on
don't-
this, I call it like the Mandela effect or the butterfly effect or whatever you guys want to call it. I call it about dropping a pebble in the ocean, right, on North America, and eventually that ripple is going to go to the Europe, right? Or you could drop a boulder, right? You make big waves. They'll get to Europe eventually. What kind of waves do you want to make? I got another analogy too. The river of life. I'm sure you guys know of this too. Oh yeah, man. I got a short story on that. Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's our intention. It's our intention, the energy that we put out, right? Yeah, it goes into the universe and it comes back. All right.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's simple.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I just maybe I'm not explaining this clear enough for Daryl specifically. So let me put this in another way. So let's imagine, right? Let's imagine you live in Burbank, California,
Okay.
right? And there's a forest fire that started nearby. Now, there's one of two outcomes, right? The fire is either going to come and burn your shit down and ruin your life, or it's going to be put out or fly in a different direction or whatever, and it's not going to affect you. Okay, so there's one of two possibilities, right? So, what I'm saying is, when you go to sleep, it doesn't matter what you dream. What your dream is has nothing to do with it. What it is when you go to sleep, your consciousness leaves your body. And it hovers there over the two possibilities. If you actually believe that the fire is going to come and ruin all of your shit, then that's the body that you're going to come back into when you wake up in an alternate dimension. But if you believe that it's not going to come to your neighborhood, then your consciousness is going to go back into the other equivalent of your body in an alternate universe where that didn't happen. And I think it's all based on intentions and beliefs.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes. You know how much stuff I've averted. You know how much stuff I've averted, right? Which I seen it was coming up on me or whoever, right? I seen it coming, right? Well, I'm kind of like a precog, whatever, right? And yeah, you send out your intention, your energy, and yeah, you can do stuff, man. This is unseen stuff. This is, man. All right, I'll be quiet again.
No, I
No.
I like that topic. I think it's an excellent topic of discussion to be a collective consciousness that can change things for the better.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And I do too. And hold on.
Oh yeah,
Give me a second.
you have no idea. I call it the gathering. We're coming into a remembrance of who we are and where we came from. Okay, I call it a gathering. We're coming into a gathering where that people, I don't do labels like these light worker peoples or these whatever peoples that are doing jobs on the planet, whatever like that. That are coming back and stuff like that. We're getting together, right?
Right.
And yeah,
Just
and shit is
out that
fucking
right now.
serious.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of work already. I'm really not going to share what I've done already.
Well, if it's positive, why don't you? If it can change the world for the better, why not share it? These are very important.
Well, that's
It is.
That's up to him, really. If he doesn't feel like
it is
sharing
very important. This is not the time right now.
Yeah, there's
just
definitely
mentioning.
time and place
Okay.
is definitely.
So we
a-
have
a
time. How
big
much
factor
time
as
do we
well.
have to change the world?
It's up to you guys.
I can't agree more. It's obviously up to us, and that's very well said. But to expand on my point, because that's just to get the idea of what I'm talking about. But obviously, that's just
Oh yeah,
on
we can shift. We can shift shit easy, man.
Yeah, well, here's what I'm saying is when it comes to the actual Mandela effect, what I just explained on a personal level, that's just on the individual level. But, for example, something like the more massive examples like Mandela's death and prison release, right, or the Shazam movie, obviously the Shazam movie was not a very important thing that happened in reality. That's obviously not the reason why a bunch of people went to sleep one night and then they woke up. Like, they didn't decide to change realities because of that movie. There was something else that everybody wanted to believe or not to believe, or a lot of people, rather, wanted to believe or not believe, that one of the side effects of us re-inhabit our bodies in an alternate reality, that's just one of the side effects, which is basically, I would imagine if there's a creator behind all this, that's probably a clue that was built into the design. If a bunch of consciousnesses are going to all of a sudden decide to believe a different reality, they're going to leave some clues for you to look at and say, well, wait a minute. Apparently 80% of us remember something that, according to our history books, never happened. So what's going on here?
Okay, did it happen in another alternate reality, though?
Yes.
The thing is, the very interesting thing is, sir, is that, the Egyptians, the Peruvians, what do you call it, Aztecs, Mayans, they worked in the petroglyphs, the hieroglyphs, right? The symbols as language, right? Universe doesn't have, the universe language is through symbols, through, it doesn't have a language. You got to read energy and see. That's what I do. I read it. You got to see the wind. You got to listen, feel, right?
Yeah.
When you think, and then the wind passes by you, or a car passes by you that's red or something. Think about your thought just before that, because I focus on these things.
Yeah,
and
I'm the same way.
Universe just sharing with you, and you know what? In dream time, oh man, it's the best.
Oh, I love it. I love it, especially if you take Alpha Brain, which, by the way, we're not sponsored by them in any way whatsoever, but Alpha Brain is, if you're not familiar, it's a nootropic. In other words, it's a vitamin for your brain. It allows certain parts of your brain to kick into high gear, and it's all natural. It's based out of, root barks and flowers and plants, and it's all natural stuff. But one of the unintended side effects, Joe Rogan is a big proponent of this. One of the unintended side effects is it gives you absolutely extremely, not only lucid, but also vivid dreams. Now, lucid is where you remember every bit of it and you're aware of what's happening. But, no, that's vivid. Vivid dreams are like that. But lucid is where you are in the dream, but you're aware that you are in a dream, and therefore you can control what happens in the dream. And if you guys want to, if you want to experience that,
do you dream in color? Do you have all the senses? Touch, taste, feel, smell,
color, taste, physics. Especially, have you ever had those dreams where you're just literally flying as your body, you're just flying?
Have you ever had dropping dreams, like falling off cliff dreams? Or have you ever had?
Yeah.
Hey man, I gotta ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream where that you would actually choose to try to see if you can die and see? Because I always heard that if you die in a dream, you actually die. So I try to kill myself a few times, right?
But it doesn't work, does it? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yes, I have tried that.
Doesn't work.
No matter what you jump off of, no matter what you try to shoot yourself with, you always wake up. You wake up
I am
right
so
before.
conscious in my dreams, man.
Yeah,
right?
It's a weird thing.
100%.
You can't kill yourself in your dream because right before you pull the trigger, or right before you jump off the or right before you hit the ground, rather, after you jump off the edge, you always wake up every single time.
Not me.
Really? You've actually died in your dream before and then woken up from it?
So you know what I do? I separate. I
How
go
did you
to
do
third
that?
person, and I watch myself being killed.
Wait,
Yeah,
so
get that to you.
well, but that's a different perspective, though. So you're saying that you
I've
weren't.
been through it a lot of times, man.
Wait, hold on. But there's a little bit of a distinction there that I think we need to clear up. You're saying that you watched yourself in a dream die. That's not the same as you being yourself in the dream and you dying as yourself.
If I'm about to get killed, I'll separate myself from my body, right? Like, well, from the dream. Okay, this is where
Well,
it gets
that's a
strange.
whole
'Cause
nother.
I'm already in a dream.
Yeah, I've never
but I'll
done
separate
that. Yeah.
myself out of that perspective.